In this era overrun by monsters, the Eye of Insight could read every gift of a genius. It failed completely on Kim Tae-hyun. That alone startled the association's director. He had once been nothing more than an ordinary porter. In such a dangerous world, anyone without an awakened ability was doomed to live as a lowly laborer. Ever since the Abyss appeared, hordes of monsters had invaded the human realm. To fight back, people began awakening special powers. With those abilities, humanity repelled countless beasts and even ventured into the Abyss itself. As a result, ability rank became the measure of one's worth. If your rank was high enough, a life of comfort awaited you. But none of that mattered to Kim Tae-hyun. For at 35, he still couldn't even open his status window. After collecting the monster's dropped loot, he looked around and realized the battlefield was filled with corpses. He was the only survivor. Before him, a colossal creature whispered in a chilling voice. It was Asmodeus, an SSS-ranked demon. Kim Tae-hyun braced himself to strike, but the demon's casual motion tore off his arm. A flash of violet light pierced his skull. In that instant, memories of his entire life rushed back. His days were filled with misfortune. His parents killed in a car crash. Himself bullied for never awakening a power. He truly was a failure. Yet he refused to die so pitifully. The moment his blood hit the ground, he fulfilled the condition for awakening. A massive gate slowly appeared before him. From within, a white silhouette emerged. Time itself seemed to freeze. The monster stood motionless, while Kim Tae-hyun stared in disbelief. The figure calling itself King explained that he had been summoned through the gate Kim had opened. From this moment onward, he would grant Kim Tae-hyun the omnipotence of a king. For he had chosen Kim Tae-hyun, recognizing his unyielding will and perseverance. A blinding white light flared before Kim Tae-hyun could react. "One day, you will understand everything," murmured the king. "We will meet again." With those words, a red light flashed across the void. When Tae-hyun opened his eyes again, he was met with a hard, stinging slap. He hadn't even figured out what was happening until a status window on the side caught his attention. "Wait, is this 16 years ago?" A wild laugh burst from his chest. The next instant, he threw a heavy punch at the short-haired man, sending him flying dozens of meters away. "If I can see the status window, that means I'm an awakened being now." At the same time, two others shouted and charged at him. But with just one punch and one kick, he sent both of them crashing to the ground. For 35 long years, he had never stopped training his body. He had mastered knowledge of the Abyss, of monsters, and countless combat techniques. So facing these untrained fools, he was utterly confident in victory. Within moments, both men lay defeated before him. But then, Bae Hyo-ju slowly stood up from the side, activating his C-rank ability, Petrification, turning his skin into solid stone. The next second, he lunged forward, his fist aimed straight at Tae-hyun's face. Kim Tae-hyun barely dodged to the side, but Bae Hyo-ju immediately leaped into the air, crashing down with tremendous force, only to hit nothing but the ground. At the same moment, Kim Tae-hyun blinked behind Bae Hyo-ju in an instant. He swung a heavy punch straight toward the man's face, but it slammed uselessly against the petrified defense. As Tae-hyun froze in surprise, Bae countered with a brutal blow, sending him flying dozens of meters away. Tae-hyun was now on the brink of death. Bae Hyo-ju walked toward him slowly, a cold sneer curling on his lips. Pathetic. What now? Run away, or struggle with that useless little skill of yours? For all awakened beings, skills and rank meant everything. An F rank was barely stronger than a normal human, while S ranks were monsters. Their bodies and powers grew exponentially. And what Kim Tae-hyun possessed was not only an unseen, unheard of skill, but also one ranked at the lowest F. Facing a C rank like Bae Hyo-ju, he stood no chance. Yet deep down, he could feel it, he would win. As Kim Tae-hyun slowly rose to his feet again, Bae's eyes widened in shock. No way did he actually awaken? Tae-hyun looked at his hand and whispered, So this is Devour. He could feel mana surging through his veins. The next instant, Bae Hyoju lunged forward with a ferocious punch. But Taehyun merely raised his right hand, and the two forces collided violently. In the aftermath, the stone covering Bae's body began to crack and crumble away. With a sudden burst of power, Kim Taehyun devoured every trace of Bae Hyoju's ability. That should be the end of it, right? A system prompt echoed before him. Predation complete. Result: rank increased to E. New skill acquired. Petrification. The scene shifted. He was now carrying the 3 unconscious students to the school infirmary. After a brief round of treatment, he turned and quietly walked away. Even he couldn't believe it. He had truly awakened the gift of predation and defeated Bae Hyoju. In his past life, no amount of training could ever raise his rank, but now, one battle had changed everything. It's only an F-rank skill, he muttered, yet its power far surpasses a C rank, and it can even steal others' abilities. He couldn't help but wonder, why had the king given him this power? And for what purpose had he been sent back? For now, what mattered most was figuring out the exact nature of predation. Since his parents' death, he had lived under his uncle's roof. Now, he planned to gather information on talents like his. But then, the scene before his eyes made him freeze in shock. A group of thugs stood in front of him, and among them was Hwang Ji-young. "Wait, shouldn't you be at school right now?" Taehyun asked. His eyes fell to the scattered cardboard boxes on the ground. In that instant, he understood everything. Ji-young had been hanging around with bullies. The blonde-haired punk sneered, "If you don't want to get hurt, pretend you didn't see anything." Before he could finish, Kim Taehyun threw a heavy punch straight at him. The crowd froze in shock. Taehyun quickly raised his right hand, trying to activate predation. But the system chimed, "Skill cannot be used." At that moment, the blonde thug's fist slammed into him, sending him flying. Instantly, all 3 enemies activated their abilities. 3 streams of energy burst toward Taehyun, striking him head-on. A mere unawakened trash dares to act so bold. But just then, another system alert echoed. Predation activated successfully. Abilities confirmed. Bind, Toxin, Bleed. What? He resisted our attacks and nullified them. Taehyun countered with a crushing blow, knocking one of them to the ground. He didn't know exactly what had happened, but one thing was clear. Predation was terrifyingly strong. Within moments, the group lay defeated before him. From that fight, he learned 2 key things. First, only awakened beings possessed a status window, and although he could record their data, not every detail was displayed. Second, predation was unlike any other skill. Mana wasn't the only factor that determined its strength. More importantly, it seemed to have a passive effect that could nullify abnormal status abilities entirely. Whether his assumptions were right or not would have to be confirmed through future testing. At that moment, his younger cousin suddenly dropped to his knees before him, apologizing profusely and swearing that he would repent and follow in Kim Taehyun's footsteps from now on. Taehyun blinked in confusion, caught off guard by the sudden gesture. But there was no time to dwell on it. Something far more important was about to happen today. So he simply smiled and said, "Then come with me. We got something to take care of." Meanwhile, in a restricted zone known as the Forbidden Ground, a group of awakened individuals looked on in shock because the phenomenon known as a gate break had just begun. Gate break, a catastrophic event where the passage connected to the abyss suddenly tears open, unleashing waves of monsters upon the world. It had been 10 long years since the last gate break. 2 operatives nearby looked visibly nervous, but one reassured the other. "Don't panic. My gift is a B rank barrier. This gate break is only C rank, meaning the monsters can't exceed that level. Even if something unexpected happened, a B rank barrier should have kept things under control." The 2 of them hurried deeper toward the restricted zone, but only Kim Taehyun knew the gate break wasn't just C rank. At the same time, their commanding officer sensed something wrong. How are C rank creatures breaking through a B rank barrier? Before he could finish, massive shadows surged from the rift. Gigantic monsters emerged one after another, roaring in fury. The barrier shattered in an instant. With no time to react, everyone was consumed by roaring flames. At that same moment, Taehyun's cousin couldn't help but wonder, how did Kim Taehyun know the gate breaks level would rise? To conceal the fact that he was a regressor, Kim Taehyun simply replied, "It was intuition." At that moment, a massive horde of monsters came charging toward the crowd in chaos. "Remember what I told you to do?" he shouted. "Now's the perfect time." "But what about you?" his cousin yelled back. "Me? I'll take care of them, of course." Meanwhile, at the command center, officials received an urgent report. The current gate break had escalated to a rank, and now, only one A rank awakened remained capable of handling it. The A rank ability, Light Blade, wielded by An Hyunju. The scene shifted. Kim Taehyun was holding the line against waves of monsters. With his predation gift, he quickly wiped out everything in his vicinity. During the fight, he realized something. Predation's activation was tied to his fatigue level. Once his fatigue exceeded 70, the skill refused to trigger. Most abilities relied on mana, but that didn't mean mana was the only concern. Fatigue was another hidden factor. Using skills drained stamina, and high fatigue reduced both power and endurance. But surprisingly, he discovered he could restore mana by absorbing the energy of slain monsters. More importantly, his rank had now risen to D, and both predation and petrification had evolved to D rank as well. "The more I use predation," he muttered, "the stronger it becomes. At this rate, I'll become the strongest in the world." As he prepared to rush toward his cousin's location, a gigantic monster suddenly dropped from the sky. And just then, An Hyunju appeared, her light blade glowing in her hands. With a single dazzling swing, she cleaved the creature clean in half. She had taken down an A-rank monster with shocking ease. It was now clear, the one who stopped the gate break before the regression had to be her, An Hyunju, the wielder of Light Blade. She was still as powerful as ever, but why was she here? Before Taehyun's return, she should have been battling the giant ogre on the other side of the city. Suddenly, a warning pinged in his skill perception. A moment later, a blade pierced straight through An Hyunju's chest. Her eyes widened in disbelief. The assailant grinned darkly. "Finally caught you, An Hyunju." Meanwhile, Taehyun's cousin stood outside the infirmary, lost in thought. His mission was simple: protect Choi Na-young. In her previous life, she had been killed by a monster while trying to save others. So he had to use his sleep skill to knock her out and move her somewhere safe. As for what came next, he'd handle it himself. Even so, a question gnawed at him. How did Kim Taehyun know all this? Could he have awakened a talent that allowed him to see the future? The scene shifted again to the battlefield drenched in chaos. Even Kim Taehyun stood frozen in shock. An Hyunju, bleeding heavily, shouted at him, "Who are you?" As expected from an A rank. Her presence alone radiated immense power. The one who had struck her was revealed, a B-rank villain named Han Sang-do, with the gift of invisibility. In this world, awakened beings who used their powers for crime were known as devils. Han Sang-do was an extremely dangerous man. But before I came back, Taehyun thought, these two never even fought each other. Could my return have already changed the future? At that moment, An Hyunju raised her light blade and charged straight at Han Sang-do. But the ground began to quake violently. A colossal monster erupted from beneath the earth, sending a massive fist crashing toward the group. The sudden shift in battle made everyone tense. Han Sang-do turned his gaze toward Kim Taehyun. Well, didn't expect an audience. This is getting interesting. Guess I'll kill you first." He lunged forward with killing intent. Taehyun didn't flinch. His body hardened instantly as petrification activated. With a swift kick, he sent Han Sang-do flying backward. "B-rank criminal Han Sang-do," he said coldly. "The infamous one. They meant you, didn't they? I'm honored to finally meet you." The two clashed fiercely, their attacks and counters echoing like thunder. But Han soon realized his blade couldn't pierce Taehyun's hardened defense. He didn't know how Taehyun recognized him. But if the man grew too confident, that arrogance would be fatal. Because in battle, the unexpected always comes. In the next instant, Han activated invisibility. Taehyun swung his fists wildly, trying to guard against unseen strikes. But Han found an opening. A sharp slash tore across Taehyun's arm, blood spraying into the air. Han sneered, "We've hunted plenty like you before. People who think they're invincible always run once their weakness shows." "Before you die," Han Sang-do sneered, "here's one last lesson. Every skill has a weakness." His relentless barrage hammered down, shattering most of the stone covering Taehyun's body. It seemed petrification couldn't block every strike. Under continuous assault, even stone would crumble. Did he see through it from the start? Taehyun thought. But just as expected, his physical prowess far surpassed a typical D rank. He was holding his ground against a B rank. Han grinned. "Time to end this little test." With that, he lunged forward once more. "Do you know why I fought you?" he hissed. "Because I intend to steal your skill." The next instant, he activated invisibility again, circling rapidly around Taehyun, searching for an opening. But Taehyun calmly raised his left hand. "Didn't you say it yourself? Every skill has a weakness." After countless uses of predation, he had already noticed something crucial. No creature had ever escaped it. In other words, no matter where you hide, you can't escape predation. The next second, the air rippled with darkness, and Han Sang-do's invisible form was devoured whole. At the same time, On Hyunju lay on the ground, barely clinging to life. She couldn't withstand the giant monster's overwhelming attacks. But just as the killing blow came, Kim Taehyun appeared beside her in a flash, pulling her out of danger. "Fell so fast, huh? You really made my job easier," he said with a smirk. The scene shifted. Taehyun and his cousin had returned home. Their family members rushed to them, faces filled with worry and relief after hearing about the catastrophe. Meanwhile, news spread across the globe. The gate break had finally been contained. The heroes who survived were receiving medical treatment. When reporters crowded around, On Hyunju painfully stated, "The one who defeated the giant wasn't me." But since the monster's body had yet to be found, unease lingered among the people. Looking at his phone, Taehyun noticed not a single mention of his name. He exhaled softly in relief. "Now," he murmured, "it's time to move to the next phase." Although he now possessed 3 skills, his current control was limited. Using them all at once was impossible. Mana drained too quickly, and his fatigue shot up almost instantly. The only real solution: mana potions. Elixirs capable of restoring both mana and stamina, though incredibly expensive. And exploring dungeons required official authorization. So, he had only one option: to venture into an undiscovered dungeon. His next target, B-rank monsters, the Spider Sisters that reach the next level. He'd need to absorb hundreds of them. The next moment, the creatures lunged forward in unison. As massive silk balls flew toward him, Taehyun calmly activated predation for defense. The feeding began. As energy surged into his body, he gained a new skill: numbness. The scene then shifted to the player association. Players were awakened beings authorized to enter and clear dungeons using their powers. In Nation H, 5 major factions existed, including the 4 most powerful guilds. The warriors focused on combat, the artisans on alchemy, the mages on magic, and the nightwalkers on intelligence and information gathering. And above them all stood the universally recognized institution, the Player Association of Nation H. Seated at the conference table were 2 powerful figures: the leader of the Nightwalkers Guild, S-rank player Yu Yuin, and the Player Association president, S-rank player Ji Jinhee. Their most pressing concern at the moment was the rise of a rogue faction known as the Malice Guild. Its members, all wearing rings engraved with 3 skulls, looted, burned, and killed wherever they went. And recently, they'd begun targeting players. "But that's not the real reason you called me here, is it?" Yin asked, narrowing her eyes. "Of course not," Ji Jinhee replied. "There's something else I need your opinion on. If I remember right, you passed the player qualification test at 19. So tell me, Do you think a high schooler could actually defeat those kinds of monsters? At that same time, Kim Tae-hyun was in contact with the Alchemist Guild, looking to buy a few mana potions. He casually picked out a few low-grade magic stones to trade. Soon after the gate break incident ended, schools reopened. During that period, Tae-hyun trained relentlessly to strengthen his body and cleared dungeons to accumulate magic stones. After days of effort, he had become a VIP of the Alchemist Guild. At the same time, all of his skills had advanced to C rank, and his overall level had also reached C. Even so, he knew his journey was far from over. People around him were shocked. After all, defeating someone like Bae Hyo-ju could lead to serious consequences if discovered. Just then, a group of men approached. Leading them was none other than the boss of Bae Hyo-ju's crew, an S-rank awakened named Lee Young-jae. He was the third-generation heir of the Taesan Group, a sponsor of Taesan Academy, and the undisputed ruler among the school's delinquents. The one who had instigated Bae Hyo-ju and his gang to bully Kim Tae-hyun was none other than Lee Young-jae himself. "So, what the hell are you doing here, you bastard?" Tae-hyun snapped. At once, Lee's underlings shouted curses from behind him. But in the next second, a fist slammed into one of them, sending the man flying. "You don't get to speak here," Lee said coldly. He then turned his gaze to Tae-hyun. "I know you took down Bae Hyo-ju, but don't get cocky. You should know exactly who's standing in front of you." Tae-hyun smirked faintly. "So this is the strength of an S-rank awakened? Impressive." Deep inside, though, he wondered, could Lee Young-jae withstand predation? Just as the tension reached its peak, a calm, crisp voice cut through the air. It was Lim Yi-young. She was the Academy's acknowledged S-rank prodigy. Brilliant, respected, destined to become an SS-rank player in the future. But she had one flaw. She was stubborn to the bone. Once she decided on something, no one could change her mind. Lee Young-jae frowned, visibly displeased at her interruption. Their auras clashed, the room trembling as a fight threatened to break out. But in the end, Lee decided to hold back and turn to leave. Yet the moment he stepped outside, he suddenly launched an attack at Yi-young. Their powers collided instantly, shockwaves rippling through the hall. At that exact moment, the school's broadcast blared to life. "Attention all students. The Player Association will be hosting a special lecture in the main hall. Please gather immediately." The Player Association? Huh? Lee muttered with a smirk. After a moment of thought, he decided to head there first. "You're safe for now, Kim Tae-hyun," he said over his shoulder. "What are you waiting for?" Tae-hyun said, "Didn't you hear the announcement? We're supposed to head to the main hall." Lee Young blinked in surprise, momentarily frozen in place. The scene shifted, students all around were whispering. "What do you think this lecture's about?" On stage, a middle-aged man took the microphone and spoke. "My name is Go Tae-wook. I'm here today for 2 reasons," he began. First, to provide training and education regarding the recent gate break incidents. Second, to inform you about the upcoming changes to the Player Association examination ceremony. As for the future of the Player Association in Nation H, that future lies in the hands of you, our new generation of awakened players. As soon as he mentioned changes to the exam system, the entire hall erupted in chatter, energy and curiosity filling the air. Minister Go Tae-wook then began to explain. "In recent months, gate breaks have been occurring far too frequently," he said. "The number of dungeons and monsters has skyrocketed, and the Player Association is now facing a serious shortage of manpower. That's why, starting today, we'll officially allow high school students to take the player exam." The hall fell silent for a second before erupting into gasps and murmurs. "We'll select the most promising candidates based on overall evaluation data," he added. But Kim Tae-hyun could tell instantly. He was lying while the announcement sounded fair. The real selection had already begun behind the scenes. The process was being carried out through Go Tae-wook's personal skill, the Eye of Insight. It allowed him to see the ability stats of everyone present, and when he focused hard enough, he could even view their status windows directly. Minister Go Tae-wook seemed pleased. The talent here far outshined that of any other academy. Many of these students had real potential to become players. But what truly surprised him were two individuals standing near the front. He had already received the Nightwalkers Guild's recommendation list. Yet these two untrained students possessed power readings far beyond expectation. It was as if he'd stumbled upon hidden treasures. Then, Lee Young-jae spoke up coldly. "Since this lecture is about the player exam, I think there's someone here who doesn't belong. Only awakened individuals can participate in the player exam," he continued. "Which means people like him, unawakened trash, don't deserve to stand here." "Power isn't everything," Go Tae-wook replied calmly. "Awakening rank, adaptability, and knowledge of the abyss, all of these factors matter. To become a true player, one must be tested in multiple areas. But those tests are designed for awakened candidates," Lee shot back. "For someone unawakened, it's nothing but humiliation." Kim Tae-hyun, however, knew the truth. He was only here to confirm whether his awakening was genuine. Lim Young wanted to step in and stop Lee, but remembering how stubborn Tae-hyun was, she held herself back. She knew he wouldn't accept anyone's help. As Lee Young-jae continued to glare at him, Tae-hyun remained calm, unfazed. "He doesn't need to see it with his own eyes for me to prove I belong here," Tae-hyun thought. Minister Go frowned. An S rank picking on a weaker student? How disappointing. But when he activated the Eye of Insight and looked directly at Kim Tae-hyun, his expression froze. He couldn't read a single number from the boy's status. The hall fell silent as Tae-hyun quietly said, "If unawakened people have no place here, then I'll take my leave." At that moment, the minister was still in shock. Neither the association president nor guild leader Yu Yun had ever caused such a reaction. It happened with this kid alone. He watched Kim Tae-hyun walk away. No matter what he tried, he couldn't see through the boy's stats. As Tae-hyun gave a faint, mocking smile, the numbers finally appeared. But what he saw left him completely frozen. Kim Tae-hyun's power level was 5,096. The scene shifted. Kim Tae-hyun was searching for clues about the king. But soon, Lee Young-jae's men found him. "You'd better come with us quietly." "And what if I refuse? You've got that aunt who runs a restaurant, right?" At those words, Tae-hyun's eyes turned sharp and cold. "If you don't cooperate," the thug sneered, "others might get hurt." The next moment, a thunderous crash echoed. The library was instantly reduced to ruins. "I'll ask you one last time. Where is Lee Young-jae?" After learning his location, Tae-hyun headed straight to an indoor room. A bald bodyguard stood there, visibly startled. He had been casting status-inflicting skills from the start, yet none affected Tae-hyun. Such resistance could only belong to an A rank or higher awakened. Just as Lee Young-jae had suspected, Tae-hyun was already awakened. This meeting, in fact, was Lee's attempt to recruit him. "I plan to start my own guild after graduation," Lee said calmly. "For that, I need exceptional people. Not third-rate trash like Bae-hyo Soo, but someone like you." He then gestured toward Tae-hyun. "Forget the unpleasant past and become my loyal subordinate. If you do, both you and your family will live comfortably." But Kim Tae-hyun scoffed. "Wealth, fame, none of that interests me. And you will pay dearly for crossing the line." Seeing Tae-hyun's defiance, Lee Young-jae erupted with a surge of blazing fire. At the same time, his bald bodyguard quickly raised a barrier, preventing anyone outside from noticing the commotion. The two then clashed in a fierce exchange of blows. With both of them striking at full power, a massive shock wave burst forth, sending them flying apart. Before Tae-hyun could react, Lee's whip-like kick slammed into him, knocking him to the ground. A burst of blood sprayed from his mouth. "Now you understand your place, don't you?" Lee sneered. The bald guard watched silently, deep in thought. "That kid must be an A-rank physical type awakened," he muttered. "Strong combat ability, solid mental strength. Ordinary people can't touch him." But today his opponent is the crystal of talent, S-rank Lee Young-jae. There's no way he can win. Yet at that moment, something fell off. Tae-hyun's speed was rising. He closed the distance and smashed a punch straight into Lee's face, sending him flying tens of meters away. The bald guard gasped. "The young master, he's being overwhelmed." Lee Young-jae's eyes widened in horror. His body wouldn't move. What's going on? Isn't his ability supposed to enhance physical combat? Looks like it's finally taking effect. Back then, Kim Tae-hyun had obtained 3 skills through predation: petrification, invisibility, and numbness. At first, he hadn't used them all. After all, a C-rank numbness couldn't penetrate an S-rank's resistance. And because fire attacks covered such a wide area, he couldn't rely on invisibility. As for predation, that was his trump card, never to be used carelessly. So he chose the safest strategy: close combat, to let the numbness toxin gradually seep into Lee Young-jae's body. With each strike, the toxin spread deeper, something even an S rank couldn't resist. Eventually, it would paralyze him completely. As Taehyun advanced step by step, the bald guard stared in disbelief. He's a genius. He's bridging the rank gap through sheer combat. But the fight wasn't over. Lee Young-jae gritted his teeth. "You're strong, I'll admit, but you'll never defeat me." He pulled out a magic stone. A second later, he crushed it in his hand. A blazing fire giant materialized before Taehyun. "Now, I'll show you my real power." Facing the towering inferno, Taehyun had no choice but to dodge constantly. When the giant's flaming fist came crashing down, Taehyun leapt into the air, throwing a counterpunch, but the giant spat a massive fireball at him. The two forces collided violently. The fire's strength proved greater. The petrified layer shattered instantly. With a thunderous blast, Taehyun was blown dozens of meters away. The bald guard recognized it immediately. It was the young master's S-rank skill, Heart of Flame, but at his current level, Lee Young-jae couldn't fully control its power. Then it struck him, that magic stone, a mana amplifier stone, crafted from a monster's heart. It multiplies magical energy in an instant. Although that kind of item could let him use a true S-rank skill, the overwhelming mana could backfire and destroy him at any moment. But Lee Young-jae didn't care in the slightest. At that moment, Kim Tae-hyun had just gotten back on his feet, only to be struck down again by a fiery punch. As he collapsed, Lee's rage spiraled out of control. Seeing this, the bald guard rushed toward Taehyun. "If you're still alive, get out of here now," he shouted. But to his shock, Taehyun's response was a heavy punch. "The fight's not over. There's no way I'm running." He quickly chugged several recovery potions. "As expected of an S rank awakened," he said, smirking. "Then I'll go all out too." Elsewhere, Minister Go Tae-wook was reporting the Academy's situation to the association president. The president looked astonished. "Are these numbers real?" "Of course. Lee Young-jae's at 1,900. Lim Young's at 2,300. Both S-rank awakens. Even untrained, they're already near A-rank player levels, comparable to the Saintis class in Nation J. The Saintis represents one of Nation J's top players. Her awakening test results exceeded 2,500 points on her first try. But Kim Tae-hyun, Go said quietly, "He's a monster among monsters. Could it be my skill is mistaken?" Either way, Minister Go decided to confirm it himself. At that same moment, the bald guard stared in disbelief. Because Kim Tae-hyun was now absorbing the flames from Lee Young-jae's body. Even Lee Young-jae couldn't believe what had just happened. I lost. To someone like Kim Tae-hyun, he shouted in frustration. "I'm the heir of the Taesan group." An S rank awakened. As he unleashed his strongest strike, Tae-hyun remained calm. "Your status means nothing to me. I am Kim Tae-hyun, wielder of the power of kings." The moment he activated that power, crimson energy erupted and swallowed Lee whole. A deafening explosion followed. The entire stadium was reduced to ruins. Lee Young-jae collapsed to the ground, completely defeated. But Taehyun's eyes narrowed in surprise. An A-rank player, Seol Hoon-do. He hadn't expected that during predation, Seol Hoon-do would forcefully pull Lee out of the consuming energy. Still, Taehyun had successfully absorbed Lee's skill. The bald guard shouted, "He's the heir of the Taesan group. If you keep this up, there'll be serious consequences." Taehyun stayed composed. "Do I look like someone who's afraid of trouble?" He had no intention of killing Lee, but there had to be a price. Since he's the Taesan heir, he said coldly, his life's worth at least 10 billion. The explosion inside the arena had drawn attention from all around. Lim Young instantly recognized the mana and flames. That's Lee Young-jae's power. Don't tell me. He's fighting Kim Tae-hyun? Soon after, she rushed toward the stadium, regret filling her thoughts. She should have stopped Lee Young-jae earlier. Please, Kim Tae-hyun, come back safe, she begged. The scene shifted. Lim Young stood there in disbelief. You arrived just in time. I need someone to carry him to the infirmary. As she tried to understand what had happened, Kim Tae-hyun replied calmly. He probably fell down the stairs and told her not to let anyone know he had been there. Then he turned and left. At last, Kim Tae-hyun exhaled. Thankfully, everything had been handled. But what was that just now? He murmured. Charm +5. New skill acquired. Heart of the Monarch, C rank. Isn't charm normally an entertainer's stat? Why did this appear after predation on Lee Young-jae? And why wasn't a Heart of Flame? Heart of the Monarch increases the stats of allied team members. Lee Young-jae actually had a skill like that. This is incredible. Such skills are extremely rare. It can affect the entire party's skill levels, and it can combine with any other skill. Never thought I'd get this lucky. At that moment, several cars screeched to a stop in front of Kim Tae-hyun. The passenger who stepped out was Minister Go Tae-wook of the Player Association. Though he had many questions, the one burning issue on his mind was, what exactly did you do in the stadium just now? Elsewhere, the bald bodyguard reported everything to the president of the Taesan group. He hurt my son, and now you expect me to buy his life? How amusing. Soon after, the chairman agreed to Kim Tae-hyun's demand. But since things have gone this far, I'll need to reclaim my dignity. With a snap of his fingers, two figures suddenly appeared before him. The bald guard turned pale. But sir, he's just a kid. Shut up. I hate useless people. That man was none other than Lee Young-jae-soo, the Taesan Group's president, and an S-rank player. Meanwhile, Kim Tae-hyun looked puzzled by the minister's question. Was he referring to what happened in the gymnasium or to the earlier commotion in the lecture hall? He doubted the minister would come all this way over something so small. So he asked cautiously, are you talking about the explosion just now? The minister shook his head. Minor incidents like that are handled by other departments. Hearing that, Taehyun's confidence returned in full. He smiled slightly. Then you must be here to give me my player exam invitation, right? And what makes you so sure of that? Because the answer's obvious, isn't it? When Taehyun revealed his full stats, everyone around him froze in disbelief. His numbers were even higher than before. Just who is this guy? Someone whispered. The scene shifted. Taehyun was already telling his cousin the news about entering the player exam. Hearing that, he froze on the spot. Back to the main issue. Taesan Group would likely handle the stadium incident, easing Minister Go Tae-wook's suspicions about Kim Tae-hyun. For now, he needed to focus on preparing for the player exam 1 month away. At that moment, a phone call drew his attention. Meanwhile, two figures were secretly watching his house from a distance. They whispered to each other, confused. Why would association players guard a high school kid? He must be one of the exam candidates. The intruders were the infamous Black and White brothers. Black possessed invisibility and body enhancement, while White specialized in invisibility alone. They planned to show Kim Tae-hyun what a true awakened being really was. Just then, a dull thud came from behind. Damn it, Black spun around, startled. Who the hell are you? His only answer was a sudden strike. Kim Tae-hyun smiled faintly. I'm that high school kid you were talking about. A few hours earlier, the bald guard had been stunned by Tae-hyun's demand. 10 billion wasn't a number he could casually decide on. Of course, Tae-hyun knew that. He merely wanted the man to try to make it happen, to prevent betrayal. He had made the guard worth something special. The Covenant of the Awakened, a contract forged through awakened mana that punishes those who break it. Besides the 10 billion, the guard also had to take care of the stadium incident and warn Tae-hyun in advance if anyone planned revenge. Kim Tae-hyun learned about the assassin's arrival through the bald guard's report. As the enemies launched their fierce assault, Tae-hyun dodged effortlessly, moving like a shadow. In the next instant, He struck back with a powerful punch, but his opponent evaded with ease. The assassin countered with a heavy blow, yet his attack hit nothing but air. For a brief second, the assassin froze. Taehyun was already above him in midair. So, he said coldly, "Besides turning invisible, you really have no other tricks." Meanwhile, the Night Stalker Guild leader was speaking with the association president about the upcoming player exam. She mentioned an interesting rumor. They say Minister Go Tae-wook abandoned all S-rank awakeners just to meet a single kid. "Aren't you curious?" She smirked. "How strong must that boy be to make the minister move personally?" At that same moment, both assassins had already been completely subdued by Taehyun. He stared at the red glow in his palm, frowning. "Body overload. I can't use predation right now." A few minutes later, he called the minister to clean up the scene. The minister asked, "Do you know who attacked you?" Taehyun pretended not to. Even if he told them, they wouldn't be able to handle it. "Could the exam candidate list have been leaked?" The minister muttered. "We'll need to increase security." What troubled Taehyun most was still the loss of predation. "Looks like I'll have to raise my own stats first." There are only two ways to increase power: by preying on monsters to raise awakening level, or by preying on other awakeners, but both require the use of predation. Damn it. So there's only one path left, huh? With that thought, Taehyun headed to the best gym in the country. But it wasn't the kind of place just anyone could enter. When the woman at the front desk questioned him, Taehyun casually pulled out the only black card he owned. She immediately recognized it, the SVP card of the Alchemist Guild, one of the 4 major guilds. Why would someone like him have that? And if we just let him in, something bad might happen. Just then, a voice called out to them. It was the gym's Barrank trainer, known as the Rookie Nightmare, Iron Titan. At that moment, he was proudly flexing every muscle on his body. But Kim Taehyun didn't even spare him a glance. That instantly ticked Iron Titan off. "What? You think you're stronger than me?" Taehyun answered calmly. "If you don't believe it, let's make a bet. Loser pays the gym's annual membership fee." "Deal." Iron Titan grinned and accepted immediately. The scene shifted. The two of them put on their VR gear. It was for a virtual training program called Virtual Porter. The system was designed using materials derived from the Abyss. Participants had to carry maximum weight, defeat a B-rank monster, and reach the goal in the shortest possible time. It was the most popular challenge in the entire gym. Meanwhile, Iron Titan was the first to move. Facing the massive monster, he threw a single punch and killed it instantly. The weight he carried was far beyond what Taehyun expected. At this rate, a year's gym fee seemed easily his to claim. But at that moment, a sudden flash of light caught his attention. In the next instant, a blur flashed by. Kim Taehyun instantly turned the tables. Faced with the charging monsters, he remained calm and composed. With a full-powered strike, every monster vanished in an instant. The sight left Iron Titan completely dumbfounded. A moment later, Iron Titan finally reached the finish line. Taehyun said quietly, "That was a good match, but I hope you keep your word." The scene shifted to the day of the player exam. Talents from every age group across the nation had gathered. Among the most anticipated were the nearly unbeatable close combatant, A-rank Iron Fist Hong Young-wook, the skilled fighter A-rank druid Lee Ji-san, the invincible of Busan S-rank thunder god Shin Yunbok, and the top candidate of them all, the so-called Saint Star Lim Yi-young, an S-rank awakener. Many other gifted players had joined the competition as well. At the same time, a rookie reporter was struggling with her interview. Kim, the reporter from SY Entertainment, grew anxious. If she missed this chance, she'd lose her hard-earned job. Just as she panicked, Kim Taehyun slowly appeared in her camera's frame. "Damn it, there are too many people. How are the participants supposed to get in?" she muttered. After wrapping up the interview, Taehyun hurried straight to the exam venue. The exam hall was packed, crowded and buzzing with energy. At that moment, Lim Yi-young looked shocked. She hadn't expected to see Kim Taehyun here, and he seemed completely different. Taehyun simply replied, "I just worked out a little, that's all." She had heard rumors that he'd awakened, but she couldn't believe how drastically he'd changed in just 1 month. As she was about to ask what really happened back at the gymnasium, a broadcast rang out. Young challengers of the future, welcome. From among the awakened, we'll select those most suited to become players. The first exam rule is simple. Collect number tags. Each participant has one on their chest. Lose it, and you're immediately disqualified. Collect 5 tags, and you'll advance. Time limit, 1 hour. The ground trembled violently the next moment. The entire testing field transformed before their eyes. All means are allowed, but no killing. Now then, the exam begins. Many participants had already chosen their first target, the S-rank awakener, Lim Yi-young. But clearly, they had underestimated her. With a single blow, she knocked everyone flat to the ground. Even the exam proctors watching on the monitors couldn't help but marvel. As expected of a Saint Star, her powers extraordinary. Still, one of them noted, this year's examinees are definitely stronger than last year's. One of the most anticipated participants was the S-rank awakener from Busan, Shin Yunbak. 20 minutes had already passed, yet no one had managed to get close to him. As people debated whether Lim Yi-young or Shin Yunbak was stronger, Minister Go Tae-wook kept his eyes fixed on Kim Tae-hyun's movements. After all, his stats were beyond extraordinary. If it's him, the minister murmured, he'll clear this exam easily. Show me your full power, Kim Tae-hyun. But the next scene made him flinch in surprise. Kim Tae-hyun was evenly matched against an A-rank awakener, Hong Young-wook. Wait, did I misjudge him? Tae-hyun was being pushed back by an A-rank fighter, unable to dodge a single blow. Soon, however, the minister realized what Tae-hyun was doing. The two continued trading fierce blows. After enduring Hong's relentless attacks, Hong finally shouted, "Stone skin's inferior to steel body. Why keep taking hits on purpose? What are you trying to prove?" In that moment, Tae-hyun's mana flared. Guess taking its pays off. Even after a month of training, 50% of my limiters still locked, meaning my stats aren't high enough yet. The only way to raise his abilities was to push his body to the absolute limit. For him, fighting with everything he had was training itself, and his training never truly ended. With a full force strike, Hong Young-wook collapsed instantly. At last, Kim Tae-hyun secured his second number tag. Minister Go Tae-wook burst out laughing. He really isn't normal. Using training methods in a live combat exam. Unbelievable. But here's what matters. If he's fighting just to boost his stats, that last battle must have drained most of his stamina. To conserve energy, he'll probably start hunting weaker opponents next. But the minister's eyes widened in shock the very next moment. At the same time, others watching the screen grew anxious. A mere C-rank challenging an S-rank? Is he insane? Kim Tae-hyun now stood face-to-face with Shin Yunbak, the Thunder God. Shun's chest gleamed with 147 number tags. Staring at him, Tae-hyun made a bold declaration. All I have to do is beat you. The two immediately clashed with overwhelming force. As waves of lightning surged toward him, Tae-hyun dodged with razor precision. With a single motion of Shin's finger, more bolts struck out, but Tae-hyun evaded them all. He countered with a stone-charged kick, yet it failed to leave a mark. Still, Shin Yunbak smirked approvingly. If you had ever gotten this close to him, a thunderous boom followed. Kim Tae-hyun was hurled backward by the electric blast. Even he hadn't expected the Thunder God of Busan to be this formidable. The thunderous aura surrounding him not only blocked every attack, it gave him the power to fight both up close and from afar. Kim Tae-hyun pondered, without using predation, how could he break through that defense? At that moment, Shin Yunbak charged forward to attack. Tae-hyun sidestepped quickly, but the Thunder God cut off his escape with a swift kick. Then came a relentless barrage. Tae-hyun had no choice but to retreat and dodge. Suddenly, Shin raised both hands, and a torrent of lightning rained down on Tae-hyun. The Thunder God laughed mockingly, taunting him with each strike. In the next moment, Tae-hyun activated Stone Skin, hurling a massive stone fist straight at his foe. But with a simple motion of his hand, Shin shattered it instantly. A blinding flash filled the arena. Tae-hyun's vision was completely lost. Meanwhile, the Thunder God raised his right hand high. The next instant, a blast of terrifying lightning struck Kim Tae-hyun head-on. Yet Kim Tae-hyun endured the lightning strike through sheer willpower. Even Shin Yoon-bak looked shocked. He had assumed every other contestant was third-rate trash, and that only Lim Yi-young could possibly stand on his level. But he hadn't expected someone like this to exist. At that moment, a small stone shot toward him, striking him square in the forehead. As he flinched in surprise, Taehyun appeared behind him in an instant. With a powerful swing, countless pebbles blasted into the Thunder God's body. Shun couldn't comprehend it. How could those attacks even land? It was true. Under normal conditions, the stone skin's power couldn't pierce his lightning shield. Even the highest grade stone would shatter the instant it touched his energy. But the exam field was different, constructed from special materials capable of withstanding player-level power. They might crack, but they would never fully disintegrate. Using those fragments as weapons, Taehyun had found a way through the Thunder God's defense. As for you, Shin Yoon-bak, you're no match for me. With that, Taehyun delivered a single crushing punch, defeating him outright. The crowd erupted in disbelief. A C rank just took down an S rank. Who the hell is Kim Taehyun? Minister Go Tae-wook finally let out a relieved breath. What an incredible kid, he said with admiration. But a moment later, his brow furrowed again. At the same time, Kim Tae-hyun stared down at the number tags scattered across the floor. All he had to do now was wait for the exam to end. Suddenly, an ice spear shot straight toward him. Tae-hyun leapt into the air, barely dodging it. He frowned. Why was there ice here of all places? But the next sight left him utterly stunned. Countless snowflakes burst forth, blanketing the entire arena. In seconds, a massive frozen domain had formed, and from within it, Lim Yi-young walked forward slowly. Taehyun's eyes widened. Why is she here? Has she been watching this whole time? Lim spoke calmly. I believe that with great power comes great responsibility. Using your ability without restraint is nothing but barbarism. Kim Tae-hyun, you're strong, I'll admit that. Even she hadn't expected him to defeat Shin Yoon-bak in such a way. So tell me, is that the same method you used to beat Lee Young-jae? The next instant, enormous ice pillars plummeted from above. Then came a storm of falling spikes. Taehyun dodged desperately to survive. But Lim Yi-young appeared in front of him, delivering a swift kick that sent him flying. She spoke coldly. I once believed in you. I thought you were different from Lee Young-jae, that you wouldn't act recklessly for self-interest. But after watching your fight just now, I finally understand everything. Both Lee Young-jae and Bae Heek-ju were wounded by Kim Tae-hyun himself. A massive pillar of ice erupted from the ground. Tae-hyun was hurled back and crashed heavily onto the floor. Lim Yi-young continued. It's because you abuse your power that they're still lying in the hospital beds. But that was their own fault that I won't report you to the association, but I hope you'll withdraw from the exam yourself. Because you don't deserve to become a player. Kim Tae-hyun snapped back. A woman who couldn't even stop Lee Young-jae is talking about power and responsibility? In the end, you just want to eliminate me. What is it? Are you afraid of my power? Hearing that, Lim's expression hardened. She had made up her mind. As magic swirled around her, a massive frost hammer materialized in her hands. Kim Tae-hyun, this is where you fall. Facing such overwhelming power, Tae-hyun found himself at a loss. After hundreds of stone skin activations, his strength was already spent. Stealth was useless against an attack this wide. Even though the heart of the monarch was fully activated, it could do nothing in this situation. Worse yet, the warrior skills still wouldn't trigger. His stamina was drained, and he couldn't infuse any paralysis toxin into his strikes. Now, only one option remained. With a burst of determination, Kim Tae-hyun charged straight at Lim Yi-young. With a fierce swing from Lim Yi-young, a blinding flash of white light filled the entire arena. As the crowd wondered who had won, the sight before them left everyone frozen in disbelief. As the mist slowly cleared, two figures came into view. Were they kissing? No one could have guessed that the moment Lim swung her frost hammer, Kim Tae-hyun would lunge straight toward her. The reason behind that sudden move was to inject his paralysis toxin. When releasing a status ailment skill, internal transmission at close range greatly increases the success rate. That's why Taehyun made her swallow the blood infused with paralysis toxin. Considering an S rank awakens natural resistance, it was a reckless gamble. But thankfully, the plan worked. At that moment, the arena speakers announced, "The first phase of the player examination is over. All candidates, please remain where you are." After the test concluded, all injured participants were quickly treated. Although Lim Young had been hit by the paralysis toxin, she didn't lose her number tag, so she passed the player exam as well. As for Kim Tae-hyun, even with only 7 tags, defeating both Shin Yoon-bak and Lim Young made him the center of attention. "This healing's not bad. Maybe I should try devouring one," he muttered. As Taehyun pondered that thought, Shin Yoon-bak suddenly lunged at him. Even Taehyun hadn't expected to see him here. "You won't get away with those cheap tricks this time." With a burst of power, both of them were thrown back by the impact. The surrounding candidates watched with excitement, cheering for the duel. A flash of lightning suddenly struck down between them. "Let's settle this. Fair and square," Shin shouted, just as their clash was about to begin. An invisible force surged through the arena, pinning Shin Yoon-bak to the ground. He screamed in pain, writhing under the pressure. Taehyun stared in disbelief. And then, a man wearing glasses slowly walked toward them. "Damn it! Can't you two calm down for a moment?" Kim Taehyun immediately recognized him. It was Park Sung-jin, an S-rank player. He was one of the association's top elites, destined to become a double S rank in the future. Park looked surprised. Someone could actually stay standing before him. With a sudden burst of power, Taehyun felt an overwhelming pressure weighing on his entire body. He finally realized how vast the gap was between S-rank awakeners and true players. Even Park himself was impressed. Few veterans could endure this level of suppression. Just as he was about to push harder, a doctor stepped in to stop him. After a brief but stern lecture, Park turned and asked for Taehyun's name. "My name is Kim Taehyun. So you're the one who defeated 2 S-rankers. Interesting. Your goal must be to become an S-rank player yourself. I'll be waiting for you at the finish line." With that, Park walked away. The scene shifted to the second phase of the player exam. The rules were simple. Step through the gate behind them into a D-rank dungeon. The crowd burst into shock. A real dungeon? Each team would consist of 5 candidates, led by a player examiner to clear the dungeon. Their every move inside would be evaluated: combat skill, awareness, knowledge, and medical support. The association would supply the necessary weapons and consumables. The examiner announced, "Now then, please enter the gate in order." At the moment, Kim Taehyun appeared calm. After all, with real players present, nothing too serious should happen. Unless they ran into the dual dungeon, Apocalypto, an S-rank nightmare. It was first discovered during a D-rank player exam, where the entire entry team was instantly wiped out. Since then, countless unverified dungeons were banned from exploration. "If only I could stop it before it happens," Taehyun thought. "But who would ever believe me? Besides, I've got my own mission to focus on now." As long as he wasn't the first to discover the dual dungeon, he could find a way to survive. After stepping into the dungeon, he looked at the 5 people standing before him and stayed silent for a long while. The proctor of this exam was none other than Ma Tao-hak, an A-rank player and the very first man who discovered the dual dungeon. The scene shifted. The group entered the dungeon with fiery determination. Within moments, they wiped out all the monsters ahead. Even the examiner smiled with approval. "Impressive for your first real battle. Earning your player license is only a matter of time." But Taehyun found it hard to believe. Why did I have to end up in this team? No mistake, that ring on Ma Tao-hak's hand, it's the same Sage's ring from the first dual dungeon case. A unique artifact, multiplying all stats by 10. And if that dungeon really is S rank, without my predation skill, I'm as good as dead. So he needed a plan. He had to stop them from uncovering the dual dungeon before it was too late. The opportunity came sooner than he expected. As the group debated which path to take, Kim Tae-hyun suddenly dashed toward the right corridor. The proctor flinched. Hey, acting on your own is dangerous. But Tae-hyun had no choice. He couldn't let them discover the dual dungeon. Yet moments later, he regretted that decision. A shimmering portal appeared before the team. Why is there another gate inside the dungeon? Someone asked. Tae-hyun recognized it instantly. The dual dungeon known as Apocalypto. Damn it, after all that detouring, we still ended up here. As one teammate moved closer to investigate, Tae-hyun quickly stopped him. Wait a second. A new hole appearing inside a dungeon like this. Doesn't that strike you as odd? Shouldn't we report this to the association first? Even the proctor looked unsure. It was his first time seeing anything like it. After a brief pause, he decided to enter and take a look himself. The mana flow around the gate was only D rank, and with an A rank player present, it seemed manageable. Besides, if it was a special event, being the first to explore, it could earn a huge bonus score. Tae-hyun flinched. But isn't that against the rules? The examiner shot back. Kim Tae-hyun, a guy who knows nothing about teamwork, has no right to talk about rules. The rest of the group immediately turned on him, voices rising in blame. With a snap of the proctor's fingers, a blinding white light filled the area. When Tae-hyun opened his eyes again, what he saw made his heart freeze. This didn't look like a D-rank dungeon at all. A towering statue loomed before them. The team murmured in confusion. Quiet, Tae-hyun warned sharply. They're already here. Two dark silhouettes slowly emerged from the shadows. And when their full forms came into view, panic swept the group. They were A-rank monsters, Death Knights. Battle positions now, the proctor commanded. The monsters lunged forward at full speed. The team barely rolled aside to avoid the strike. The proctor quickly assigned roles. He would use magic to restrain the enemy. The others would look for an opening to strike, and the shield bearer was to stand at the front to block the onslaught. After a grueling fight, the group finally brought down the A-rank monster. None of them had imagined they could actually defeat something of that level. Just as they basked in the thrill of victory, they suddenly froze in shock. A new wave of Death Knights was slowly marching toward them. Everyone's face went pale in disbelief. But Kim Tae-hyun felt something was off. A few minutes later, they cleared another wave of enemies. By now, everyone was gasping for air, nearly spent. Yet the monsters did not lessen. In fact, each wave spawned twice as many as before. At this rate, they were all doomed to die here. At that moment, Tae-hyun spoke up, saying he'd noticed something strange. The proctor frowned. What's with this kid? He's been fighting this long and still isn't tired. He too realized that the gate was incredibly dangerous. But none of them knew. The only reason they were still alive was because Tae-hyun's skill heart of the monarch had boosted their stats beyond their limits. So what exactly do you find strange? It's just a hunch, Tae-hyun replied. But those weren't Death Knights. The others stared at him in disbelief, unwilling to accept it. He knew what he had to do, confirm it himself. Raising his greatsword, he charged toward the monsters. As the enemies swarmed, he leapt high into the air and hurled his sword straight at the massive statue ahead. With a thunderous crash, the statue shattered into pieces. In that instant, all the Death Knights vanished. The entire environment began to distort violently, reshaping itself. This was an illusion, a mirage trap. It makes us fight phantom enemies to drain our stamina. The group could hardly accept it. After all, they had fought with everything they had for nothing. The proctor frowned. But you never even fought the Death Knights. How did you know it was a trap? Instinct, Tae-hyun said flatly. Real Death Knights aren't that weak. He warned the others, we need to get out. Now, before this place kills us. But even after the mirage trap was destroyed, things didn't improve. The emergence of the dual dungeon had completely twisted the dungeon's inner space. After the long battle, everyone was already battered and exhausted. Their only hope now was to find the exit before it was too late. After a brief search, they finally found a massive door. It was risky to open, but at this point, they had no other choice. As the gate creaked open, the examiner's face stiffened. Behind the door knelt a single Death Knight. Just as everyone thought it was over, Countless Death Knights began emerging from the shadows. A burst of firelight suddenly flared up, filling the entire hall with crimson light. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably. What lay before them were legions, hundreds of Death Knights filling the room. A deep, echoing voice rumbled through the air. "Foolish humans, you've finally arrived. Now let the duel begin." The boss demanded one-on-one battles to the death. Faced with the overwhelming horde, panic swept through the team. As Tae-hyun tried to calm them down, 3 of his teammates turned and fled in terror. They would rather return to the entrance than die here. But in the next moment, a Death Knight's swing struck them down, leaving them bloodied on the floor. The remaining 2 stared in horror, frozen by fear. "I'll hold them off," Tae-hyun shouted. "Find the exit now." But suddenly, Ma Tao-hak struck him back through the doorway, then sealed it shut with a wall of magic. Tae-hyun stared in disbelief. Why would he do that? And then he whispered to himself, he's always wanted to become an S-rank player. No matter how hard he trained, the harder he tried, the further he drifted from his goal. He once believed that clearing the dual dungeon would fulfill his dream, but things were far more complicated than he thought. Facing the Death Knight's relentless assault, he raised his blade and unleashed an X-slash, cutting one of them down instantly. In that moment, he had to admit, Kim Tae-hyun truly possessed the potential to become an S-rank player. That's why he wanted Tae-hyun to take the wounded and escape while he still could. Stopping these monsters, that's the duty of a proctor. But when he looked back at his fallen teammates, he realized they were already gone. Suddenly, a deafening explosion erupted behind him. He turned sharply. Rows upon rows of Death Knights stood before him. The proctor collapsed into a pool of blood. Tae-hyun's heart pounded in terror at the gruesome sight. Then, one of the Death Knights slowly raised its sword. "Request for duel." Tae-hyun froze, his eyes catching a faint glimmer on the ground. That ring, it was Ma Tao-hak Sage's ring. The next instant, the Death Knight lunged toward him. Tae-hyun dodged to the side and quickly snatched the fallen ring. Now, it was his only hope. The moment he slipped it onto his finger, a surge of power erupted from his body, obliterating the surrounding monsters. Even the boss was stunned. What is this power? A glowing message appeared before him. Sage's ring equipped. All stats plus 10%. Condition met. Predation skill unsealed. A wave of crimson energy burst forth, devouring every Death Knight in the room within seconds. At the same time, waves of enemies surged toward him. Kim Tae-hyun instantly activated Predation to block their advance. With a single strike, he blasted them backward in an instant. But Predation alone wasn't enough. It took 10 full seconds to consume them. During that time, he had to unleash every skill he possessed. He had to fight with everything he had. Only then could he survive. Suddenly, a purple spear crashed down right in front of him. The shock nearly made his heart stop, and what came next left him completely stunned. The boss was gathering an enormous surge of magic. In the blink of an eye, countless spears floated high above. Then they rained down like a storm, aiming straight for him. To avoid being skewered, Tae-hyun sprinted forward with all his strength. Seizing a brief opening, he launched Predation straight at the boss. But the boss merely raised a hand and erased it completely. "You're strong," the boss muttered coldly, "but that's all you are." With that, he swung his weapon in a devastating blow. Kim Tae-hyun was hurled across the chamber, crashing heavily into a pool of blood. The boss wondered who could have given Kim Tae-hyun such power. Then it unleashed Roar of the Night King, a deafening strike aimed straight at him. But part of that force was blocked by an unknown energy surging from within Tae-hyun's body. "You're not an ordinary human," the boss growled. It already knew he could understand their language. "Tell me, what exactly is your power?" As the boss gathered strength, Tae-hyun's body reached the brink of collapse. At that moment, the shadow of Asmodeus appeared once more before him, surrounded by his fallen teammates. He suddenly realized it was the same as before. Nothing had changed. He didn't know what predation truly was, or why he could understand the language of monsters. He had gained strength and opportunity, yet still failed to change anything. "Why did the king give me this power?" he muttered weakly. Then a familiar voice echoed beside his ear. A hazy figure emerged before him, cloaked in darkness. "I never gave you power," the voice said calmly, filled with quiet dominance. "I simply admire your will and your defiance. You don't need to change. Just keep moving forward." In the next instant, Kim Tae-hyun's eyes snapped open. As the boss prepared to deliver a fatal blow, countless crimson energies burst from Tae-hyun's body, surging in every direction. Everything they touched was devoured into nothingness. The boss finally sensed danger. What, he's forcing his skill into overload? With a furious roar, Tae-hyun's magic power exploded upward like a storm. Seeing this, the boss grinned with twisted excitement. It swung its weapon with all its might, aiming to crush him. But this time, Tae-hyun blocked it effortlessly. "You want to know what this power is?" he said coldly. "Then feel it for yourself." With another surge, his predation skill ascended to rank B. A massive burst of energy struck the boss head-on, launching it dozens of meters away. Tae-hyun grabbed the giant sword beside him. In a flash, he reappeared before the boss, slashing relentlessly. The boss roared in fury, driven to the edge. It conjured a storm of weapons, sending them flying toward him. But Tae-hyun merely raised his right hand, calm and unshaken. With a single, devastating swing, a crimson dragon erupted from his strike, roaring as it dove straight at the boss. The boss froze in disbelief. Kim Tae-hyun murmured, "I'm not human. This power is the power of the king." With a violent surge of energy, crimson light erupted from his body, devouring the boss completely. A system prompt echoed. New skill acquired, Dominion of the Night King. Outside the dungeon, everyone stared anxiously at the glowing entrance. After recalibration, the dungeon was officially classified as rank S. Damn it, how could a D-rank dungeon suddenly become S rank? At this rate, everyone inside will die. There's no way that kid can handle it alone. Just then, the entrance burst into flashes of violet light. People braced themselves, thinking another wave of monsters was coming. But instead, a single figure slowly emerged from the glow. Kim Tae-hyun had returned. Cut to later, thanks to his efforts, every surviving candidate was safely evacuated. The results were judged based on pre-exit performance. Those who perished were properly laid to rest. As for who cleared the double dungeon, the higher-ups agreed to keep it secret. Public exposure would only bring Tae-hyun endless trouble. Of course, the association president and his two senior officers fully grasped the weight of what had happened. The president turned to them and asked, "What's your assessment of his strength?" One of them replied, "Anyone who can solo clear a double dungeon. If he truly did it alone, he's at least S rank, no doubt about it." However, one of them added, "Given his current rank, he's still far from S class. That means his potential is limitless." The two exchanged a glance and said in unison, "That kid might become a national-level strategic asset." Meanwhile, Kim Tae-hyun stood frozen in disbelief. Countless monsters loomed before him, their presence overwhelming. "Damn it, this place, it's the abyss, isn't it?" he muttered. From the distance, a lone figure slowly approached. And then it hit him. That man was the king. Around them, every monster began to scream in agony. With a single wave of the king's hand, all of them were instantly erased from existence. Tae-hyun stood motionless, stunned. A deep, echoing voice resounded from ahead. "I will be waiting for you in the deepest part of the abyss." He jolted awake from the nightmare, gasping for air. His heart pounded because he knew that wasn't a dream. "What did the king mean by those words?" he whispered. The power of predation that even S-rank monsters feared, the ability to understand their language. There were far too many mysteries. "It seems there's no other choice," he murmured. "I have to enter the abyss myself." He glanced at his skill window. Rows of B-rank abilities now gleamed before him. As expected, his battle against the Night King had pushed his level to rank B. His overall power now rivaled that of an S-class player. And at this pace, he would soon rise to become a strategic force for the entire nation. Just then, a sound outside the door caught Taehyun's attention. A moment later, a shadowy figure slowly appeared before him. Cut to, he was now sitting inside a car. He couldn't help but wonder why the leader of the Nightwalkers Guild, one of the 4 major guilds, wanted to meet him. She replied calmly, "I simply wanted to meet the one who cleared the double dungeon and offer you a ride home." But Taehyun clearly didn't buy that excuse. She sighed and went straight to the point. The third test will be the same as the first simulated combat. However, this time it will be public. The audience will be watching everything from the stands. That means all of your abilities will be exposed. Once they see your power, every guild will come after you. That's why I came, to invite you to join the Nightwalkers. Whatever you want, I can make it happen. But Taehyun rejected her offer without hesitation. He simply said he was going home. The guild master frowned. Why was he so decisive? Did another guild already recruit him? Taehyun shook his head. To him, all guilds were the same. He just didn't want to be tied down, nothing more. As he turned to leave, she suddenly appeared in front of him and clamped a hand over his mouth. "You little brat, just a newly awakened player, and you dare reject one of the 4 great guilds?" Yet even in her anger, she couldn't help but smile. She truly saw something special in him. Taehyun muttered quietly, still as reckless as ever. "Just like your sister, Lim Ah-young." The guild master froze, eyes widening in shock. "What? How do you know about that?" "Oh, I know plenty," Taehyun said with a faint smirk, "including the name that was stolen from you." In the next instant, a surge of green light shot into the sky. The guild master's aura exploded, filling the air with crushing pressure. Even the man beside her frowned. Damn it, this just got back. Her real name was Lim Ah-young, the illegitimate daughter of the Yulong Group's CEO, once meant to inherit the company. But after the CEO's lawful wife gave birth to another daughter, her name was taken away. She changed her surname to Liu and chose the path of a player instead. Very few people in the world ever learned this secret. Now, her overwhelming energy flooded the room. But Taehyun didn't back down. He unleashed his own power in response. He activated Dominion of the Night King, meeting her force head-on. Liu Ah-young's eyes widened. "What?" He blocked it and countered my attack. Taehyun slowly stepped forward. In one swift motion, he pinned her against the wall, his palm beside her face. "You'd better not cross the line, Miss Liu Ah-young." The guild master's face flushed crimson in an instant. Cut to, the next morning, crowds were gathering inside the great arena. It was time for the 3rd player examination to begin. Unlike the previous rounds, this one was open to the public. Spectators could freely watch the entire exam. Of course, the main examiners were also monitoring everything from backstage. Hidden among the crowd sat Liu Ah-young, carefully disguised. Nearby, Taehyun's uncle watched nervously. He'd heard how dangerous the player exams could be, but his cousin simply smiled. "Relax. Young Taehyun can knock them out with one punch." At the same time, reporter Kim was growing increasingly anxious. Last time, she had only interviewed a C-rank awakened, angering her editor. That Kim Taehyun guy must have been eliminated already, right? If I fail to get a real interview again, I'm finished. Suddenly, the atmosphere inside the arena shifted. Even the veteran players and the A-rank fighter Lee Ji-san all had their eyes locked on a single person, Kim Taehyun. Are they planning to gang up on him? How strong is that guy, really? The loudspeaker boomed. "Attention all spectators. Please stay alert and enjoy the match." The 3rd player exam now begins. As the signal sounded, every contestant charged straight at Taehyun. After all, in the first round, he'd single-handedly defeated 2 S-rank opponents. The crowd of challengers surged forward. A shadow darted through the mist. Taehyun reacted instantly, activating his petrification skill. A flurry of punches and kicks erupted like thunder. Within seconds, the attackers were all sent flying. But then, something flared beneath his feet, a pulse of emerald light. In an instant, countless vines burst from the ground, wrapping around him tightly. Taehyun frowned in surprise. "What the hell is this thing?" Lee Ji-san sneered. Even if you've beaten two S ranks, you've still let her guard down. This time, the winner will be me, the rank Lee Ji-san. Before he could finish, Taehyun burst free from the vines. With a single kick, he sent Lee Ji-san flying tens of meters away. But there was no time to rest. More contestants rushed in from every side. Taehyun raised his hand and whispered, "Dominion of the Night King." A crimson blast of energy erupted, flooding the arena. The spectral form of the Night King appeared before everyone. The overwhelming pressure froze every opponent in place. From his stands came a wave of shocked gasps. Lu Ah-young muttered under her breath, "Unbelievable! He actually used that move in a public exam." In just moments, every other contestant was down. It looked like the match was finally over. Only one remained, the S-rank player Lim Ah-young. Taehyun smiled lightly. Why not forfeit now? Or do you really want to relive what happened in the first round? Her expression tightened instantly. In the next moment, a massive barrier of ice rose around him, locking Taehyun in place. "Taehyun, you'd better worry about yourself first." This time, she swore she wouldn't let that happen again. Within moments, the entire arena was left in ruins. Lim Ah-young staggered forward before collapsing to the ground. She hadn't been able to defeat Taehyun, but he still gave her high praise. She had been his toughest opponent yet. Then the announcement echoed through the arena. The player exam is officially over. The winner, candidate number 920, Kim Taehyun. Cut to the next scene, the association president presenting him with lavish rewards. "Congratulations, you're now an S-rank player." The president hadn't expected it. Taehyun had defeated every single contestant on his own. But on second thought, it made sense. He was, after all, the man who cleared the double dungeon alone. Smiling, the president asked, "Taehyun, would you consider joining the new H-Nation Players Association? Your strength could change the future of our guild." Taehyun froze, speechless. He looked down at the trophy in his hands, lost in thought. So much had changed. Once a powerless ordinary man, he had defeated S ranks and claimed first place. Even the leaders of the four great guilds, including the strongest player in New H Nation, Ji Jin Se, had extended an offer. But after careful consideration, Taehyun turned them all down. The association president was left stunned by his decision. Taehyun finally gave his answer. "Rather than working for a guild or the association, I think I'll be far more efficient on my own." The president burst into laughter, surprised by his response. "Huh, you think one man can outperform an entire organization?" Then his tone shifted. "All right, let's drop the recruitment talk. There's something else you might find interesting, the Asian Friendship League. Would you consider joining?" A few days later, Taehyun was inside another dungeon. It didn't take long before every monster there was wiped out. As he caught his breath, he remembered what the president had mentioned, the Asian Friendship League. It was a continental tournament where 5 representatives from each nation's guilds competed to hunt demons and monsters. But joining wasn't easy. To qualify as a national representative, one needed an enormous amount of contribution points, and the only way to earn them was by slaying powerful monsters. The president had suggested Taehyun represent their country, but Taehyun knew the truth. As a newly ranked player, to catch up to veterans who'd built years of progress, he'd have to face monsters far stronger than any before. After a full month of tireless raids, he had cleared every dungeon he could find, yet gained no growth, no points. With no other options left, Taehyun resolved to head for the most dangerous place of all. On the other side of the city, the chairman of Taesan Group was roaring at his bald subordinate in fury. His son was still lying in a hospital bed, and the man who put him there had somehow become an S-rank player. Slamming his hand down, the chairman's aura flared. His subordinate was crushed to the ground instantly. At that moment, a maid stepped forward and whispered, "Sir, someone from the evil guild has come to visit." The chairman's anger deepened. After all, it was that very guild he had hired to deal with Kim Taehyun. Suddenly, a heavy pressure filled the room. A lone figure stepped through the door. "Calm yourself, Chairman. Your target is that brat, isn't it?" The chairman narrowed his eyes. "Who are you? A pleasure to meet you." the man said evenly. I'm Shadow, vice president of the Evil Guild. Cut to Taehyun just as he stepped out from the portal. He was greeted by a shout from a portly man waving at him. It was Park Jeon-hyung, an A-rank alchemist, the player in charge of escorting him to the auction hall. He was also one of Taehyun's biggest fans and a proud member of the Taehyun fan club. Welcome to the East Wing, the highest class auction area in the city. It hosts the largest and most prestigious auctions in the entire region. The auction featured only the finest quality items. It even offered real-time translation for buyers from different nations. But its greatest strength was security. The coordinates of this place could change at any time, and without a permit, no one could find it. Thanks to that system, not a single incident had occurred here in decades. But Taehyun knew the truth. Today, this place would be attacked by an S-rank demon. On stage, the host was presenting a rare item, the Phoenix Elixir, a potion that could increase both mana and stamina by 20 points. Taehyun's goal was simple, to gain contribution points by slaying the incoming S-rank demon. However, he didn't know much about this place. All he remembered was that, before his regression, East Wing suffered catastrophic losses in the demon assault. And he couldn't help but wonder who had defeated that monster back then. He turned to the fat man beside him. Who's in charge of this auction house? The man was just about to answer, when a sharp voice cut through the air. Well, if it isn't the youngest S-rank player from H Nation, Kim Taehyun, wasn't it? The speaker was our nation's own S-rank player, Ryohei Isaka, the head of security for the entire venue. But one thing had to be remembered. This man was notorious for betraying even his allies for personal gain. Among players, he was known as the Demon. He slowly extended his left hand. An honor to finally meet you, genius player. Taehyun, unsuspecting, reached out and shook it. The next moment, a surge of electricity coursed through his body. He hadn't expected the man to attack so suddenly. Ryohei Isaka's eyes gleamed with excitement. So it's true. You really are an S-rank. Taehyun was about to strike back, but then he caught sight of the audience nearby. They were writhing on the ground, overwhelmed by the electric shock. Ryohei casually released Taehyun's hand. Then he leaned in and said with a smirk, "Now you understand, don't you? Even among S-ranks, there's still a hierarchy. I don't know why you're here, but take my advice. Don't do anything stupid. Just enjoy the auction." As the man's figure faded into the crowd, Taehyun narrowed his eyes. Things are turning out to be more complicated than I thought. At the same time, elsewhere in the building, a group of figures was quietly closing in on the control room. To secure the control room, the bald man led his squad in a direct assault. But with just one move, they were all wiped out by the old man. That man was none other than Arandra Naru, a mysterious S-rank demon. At the same time, one of his subordinates reported nervously, "There's a problem at the auction hall. The S-rank player from New H Nation, Kim Taehyun, is on site." "What should we do?" Niru muttered with a cold smile. "That little brat? As long as I'm here, no one escapes the revelation of God." The next instant, a thunderous explosion tore through the air, engulfing the auction hall in flames. More blasts followed in quick succession, reducing 2 entire buildings to rubble. Even Taehyun was stunned. He had known the attack would happen, but not that there would be multiple strikes at once. How the hell did they even get inside the auction grounds? But questions could wait. Right now, the demons had to be dealt with first, as one of them raised a hand, signaling the others to stay still. A blur of movement flashed across the room, and in an instant, every demon was cut down where they stood. Taehyun turned to Park Jeon-won. "Contact the association and call for backup. I'll go after whoever's pulling the strings." Cut to the auction floor, where guards struggled to protect the items recently sold to clients. But as soon as Dark gave the order, the two sides clashed in a brutal fight. Within seconds, bodies were strewn across the blood-soaked floor. Dark snatched up an object from the table. At last, the Phoenix Potion. Drinking this permanently boosts mana and stamina by 20 points. He finally understood why Niru wanted it so badly. The power inside was palpable even from a glance. "If I can drink it myself." A deafening blast cut him off. One of his men collapsed instantly. Before he could react, his followers were slaughtered one after another by an invisible force. "What the? That's the invisibility skill," Dark shouted. At that moment, a razor-sharp slash fell from above, ripping through his right eye. Roaring in pain, he unleashed a burst of dark energy. In an instant, chains of pure mana shot up from the ground, binding Taehyun tightly. "You think being invisible makes you invincible? You're finished." But Taehyun grinned instead. "So this skill can even track targets. Nice. Definitely worth a predation." On the other side, Niru had already seized control of the dimensional gate control room. Everything was going smoother than expected. Once he got the Phoenix Potion, it would all be over. One of his men reported nervously, "Sir, Dark's team sent a message, but something seems wrong." Suddenly, a voice crackled through the radio. "You must be Niru, right?" Niru's eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you?" "Who else?" "The guy who just took your precious item. If you want your Phoenix Potion back, you'd better come get it yourself." After throwing out the taunt, Taehyun raised the potion and drank it in one go. In an instant, his stamina and mana surged upward. Even he was surprised by how powerful the effect was. "Well, at least now, I don't have to worry about it falling into the wrong hands." Meanwhile, Ryohei Isaka and his squad finally arrived at the scene. The team looked puzzled. The tracker led them right here, yet no one was around. Then Isaka spoke softly. "He's right in front of us. Show yourself, Kim Taehyun." A shimmer rippled in the air as Taehyun appeared, smiling. "Didn't think you'd actually spot me." Isaka's gaze sharpened. "An S-rank player like you. Why are you here?" Taehyun shot back. "Better question. Why is the head of security here at this hour?" Isaka explained that he was looking for something important. Hearing that, Taehyun immediately pieced things together. No wonder it fell off from the start. So many top players gathered here, and not one of them noticed the enemy had already infiltrated. "You need special clearance to even get in here. Looks like you're the mole inside their organization, aren't you?" The next instant, Ryohei Isaka lunged straight at Kim Taehyun. But Taehyun raised his blade and blocked it effortlessly. "Hand it over now," Isaka roared. Taehyun replied coldly, "You'll have to earn it." The two clashed, blades ringing through the air in a violent exchange. Slashes streaked past in every direction, the air trembling with energy. Taehyun was beginning to feel the pressure. Even with invisibility active, Isaka could still pinpoint his position through sound and killing intent alone. In that split second of distraction, a sharp strike came down from above. He realized in shock. Though they shared the same skill, the difference in mastery was enormous. But he still wasn't ready to use predation just yet. Gathering his strength, Taehyun unleashed his aura. An invisible force burst outward, slamming everyone nearby to the ground. But when the dust settled, Isaka was gone. His voice echoed from above. "You guessed right. Invisibility means nothing against area-wide detection. But if you really wanted to find me, you should have aimed that skill upward." Before the words even faded, a devastating strike came crashing down, splitting the entire corridor in half. But Isaka's confident grin twisted into disbelief. Taehyun had blocked the fatal blow with conjured chains. Taehyun finally spoke. "That last strike wasn't meant to find you. It was meant to limit your movement." As he spoke, countless chains wrapped tightly around Ryohei Isaka. With a heavy punch, Taehyun sent him crashing to the ground. "Now," Taehyun said coldly, "this should be over." After subduing Isaka, he extended the chains, binding everyone else nearby. "Why would an S-rank player like you do something like this?" he demanded. Then he kicked Isaka hard, sending him flying several meters away. "Stop wasting my time. Tell me everything you know about Niru." The associations have already dispatched reinforcements. Once they arrive, you're finished. Isaka only gave a twisted smile. "You really don't get it, do you?" Meanwhile, in the command room, two executives were debating their next move. The Alchemy Guild Master burst in. "Why haven't we sent reinforcements to East Sector yet?" The association president replied, I already deployed a strike team led by Park Sung-jin the moment it started. But once the Eastern Control Room was taken, all teleportation gates were sealed. Still, don't panic. There are 2 S-rank players on site. If they can just hold out until we reopen the gates. At that very moment, Liu Yiyang suddenly appeared before them. Cut back to Ryohei Isaka. He said slowly, Do you know about the skill called Contract with the Demon? It's Niru's most terrifying ability. By sacrificing human lives, both in number and quality, he can summon monsters of specific tiers. You mean? The sacrifice you spoke of, don't tell me it's... That's right. Ryohei Isaka sneered. Human sacrifice. Even the association leaders far away were stunned by the revelation. Hundreds of hostages have been taken by Niru. If they were all sacrificed, the disaster would be catastrophic. Isaka continued mocking. You may have defeated me, but you'll never defeat Niru. Now you have 2 choices. Watch them die, or charge into a battle you can't possibly win. Taehyun fell silent, weighing his options. At that moment, Niru's subordinates reported, Ryohei Isaka appears to have fallen. But the whereabouts of Kim Taehyun and the Phoenix Potion are still unknown. Niru smirked. Perhaps the boy is waiting for the association's reinforcements. With a wave of his hand, dark energy filled the room. Countless humans were suspended midair. If he won't show himself, Niru snarled, I'll just drag him out myself. As he raised his hand to execute the hostages, the entire hall plunged into darkness. When he regained his senses, the sacrifices were gone. At the same moment, Taehyun appeared behind him and launched a full-force attack. But Niru twisted aside, barely dodging the strike. Dozen after dozen of monsters burst from above, rushing down on Taehyun. He hadn't expected an ambush hidden overhead. The hostages cried for help, but he ignored them completely. The creatures crashed down like a storm, shattering the ground into craters. In an instant, Taehyun cut through them all, blade flashing in the dark. He then unleashed the dominion of the Night King, hoping to overwhelm the horde. But to his shock, it had no effect at all. Niru laughed coldly. The demons summoned by a devil contract aren't ordinary. They answer only to me and are blessed by divine power. You may have defeated Isaka, but you should never have defied God's will. Overwhelmed by the swarming creatures, Taehyun was pushed to his limits as the battle spiraled out of control. At the same time, the bystanders were frozen in fear. Don't tell me. Even he can't beat those monsters, someone whispered. But one sharp-eyed man noticed the truth. They were safe only because of Kim Taehyun's intervention. The monsters hadn't noticed them because Taehyun was single-handedly fighting them all. Looking closer, they realized his every move earlier was meant to draw the creatures away and protect them. The man concluded that from the very beginning, Taehyun's goal had been to save them. Realizing this, the crowd shouted encouragement toward him. In the next moment, Taehyun swung his chains, binding the monsters tightly. He motioned for everyone to stay silent. The endless waves of monsters were already exhausting him, and the panicking hostages only made things worse. He knew he couldn't keep this up any longer, so he signaled Park Ji-woong to move. A shadowed figure stepped forward and said, Let's begin. Just moments earlier, Taehyun had defeated Ryohei Isaka, and then briefed Park on everything that had happened. But now, the real problem was that the control room was crawling with monsters. If he only had to face Niru, it would have been manageable. But fighting here would risk the hostages' lives, and he couldn't allow that. That was why he needed Park's help. However, Park shook his head. Linking this area to the association is impossible. We don't even have its coordinates. Taehyun smirked. That's fine. I just need you to teleport the monsters out of here. At the same time, as the portal opened, countless monsters were sucked into it in an instant. Niru's eyes widened in shock. What is this? Even Park Ji-woong was stunned. The plan was going far smoother than expected. Now, only one enemy remained. Taehyun signaled for him to evacuate with the hostages. Park hesitated, wanting to stay and help, but Taehyun shook his head firmly. He's an S rank. I can't fight and protect you at the same time. Grimly, Park gathered the survivors and fled. As their figures disappeared down the corridor, Taehyun drew in a deep breath. The final battle was about to begin. Facing Niru's relentless assault, Taehyun dodged and searched for an opening. In a flash, Niru closed the distance. With a sweep of his arm, a massive tongue of flame roared toward Taehyun. Taehyun raised his blade to block. A thunderous explosion echoed through the chamber. No matter how many demons you slay, or how many lives you save, Niru sneered, "You'll never defeat me. Everything you do is meaningless." He raised his claw, ready to finish Taehyun once and for all. But even under such threat, Taehyun's expression remained calm. He believed Niru would die here today. In that instant, he activated predation. A surge of crimson energy erupted, forming a colossal dragon that devoured every monster in sight. Niru froze, stunned. He hadn't expected such hidden power. Then he burst into manic laughter. "I've changed my mind, Kim Taehyun. You will make the perfect offering to the gods." All around them, Niru's followers dropped to their knees, worshipping as if a divine presence had descended. The figures before him slowly faded into nothingness. He sacrificed them? Taehyun muttered in disbelief. Behind Niru, a colossal green skeletal dragon materialized, the S-rank beast, Bond Dragon. Meanwhile, the fleeing survivors ran straight into Niru's subordinates. Just as they prepared to fight back, the enemies coughed up blood and vanished into thin air. At that very moment, the entire building trembled as Taehyun was hurled out by the dragon's massive tail. Niru burst into manic laughter. "The dragon is the strongest of all monsters." Taehyun shot a chain through a nearby glass wall and leapt back inside the building. "Damn it, what is that thing?" The skeletal dragon roared and lunged forward. Before Taehyun could react, its tail sent him flying again. "You're finished, Kim Taehyun," Niru shouted. Taehyun raised his right hand, ready to unleash predation, but a burst of dragon's breath interrupted him mid-cast. The blast tore through the structure with a deafening roar. Niru's grin faltered for a brief moment, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Even Niru hadn't expected it. Kim Taehyun had survived that attack. "Looks like I underestimated you." Taehyun unleashed predation, narrowly evading the blast, disbelief flashing across his face. This guy, he's also S-rank. But he quickly realized, forcing that kind of power must be tearing Niru's body apart. He's reaching his limit, Taehyun thought. If I just stall long enough, I can win this. But Niru had already seen through him. Stalling for time? Smart move. But that trick won't work on me. In the next instant, Niru commanded the skeletal dragon to dive straight toward Park Ji-won and the others. A thunderous explosion ripped through the floor, leveling the entire structure. Meanwhile, after relentless effort, the guild finally reopened the portal to East Point. Led by player Park Sung-jin, the reinforcements stepped through the gate. At that very moment, the dragon lunged toward the fleeing crowd. Taehyun threw himself in front of them without hesitation. But the power gap was enormous. No matter how hard he fought, he could barely hold the line. "Don't worry about us," Park shouted. "If you die, it's all over." Indeed, Taehyun agreed quietly. When Niru summoned the skeletal dragon, he had already realized there was no way to win head-on. His only option was to buy as much time as possible, but giving up wasn't in his nature. There had to be a way to save everyone. Then, a deep voice echoed in his mind. "I can't hold back anymore." Taehyun froze, unsure where the voice came from. A system prompt flashed before his eyes. Predation temporarily increased. Rank SSS. But the strain tore through his body, threatening to rip it apart. Niru watched in disbelief. The skill kept rising to triple S rank. A blinding surge of power filled the entire area. Predation lost control? Damn it. What kind of power did the king give me? Taehyun's flesh began to fracture under the overwhelming force. Am I going to die here? He collapsed to his knees, his breathing shallow and fading. Niru stood frozen, horrified. This power was far beyond human limits. Even its wielder couldn't withstand it. Why isn't he canceling the skill? Is he buying time? He stepped closer, cautiously testing the air. But the moment he did, the dragon's wing was devoured instantly by the red aura. Niru's eyes widened in terror. Taehyun slowly rose to his feet. Behind him, a colossal shadow took form. An ancient beast unlike anything seen before. What is that thing? An overwhelming pressure radiated from Taehyun's body. You're not Kim Taehyun. Niru roared. Who the hell are you? Where did that power come from? Taehyun lifted his hand, his voice low and cold. That's none of your concern, because you're already dead. In the next instant, everything before him was swallowed by predation. Kim Taehyun unlocked a new skill, contract with the demon. After defeating Niru, he suddenly drifted into a dream. In that dream, chains burst from the darkness, binding his body tight. Giant boulders rained down from above, crushing the ground around him. Then, a pair of enormous hands appeared out of nowhere. In the next moment, Night King's aura activated on its own. He was stunned. Why was his own skill attacking him? Then Predation spoke in a mocking tone. You really think these powers belong to you? Don't be ridiculous. You devoured them. Now it's time to spit them back out. The entire dream began to quake violently. Taehyun jolted awake, gasping for air. He looked at his right hand, the one once ruined by predation, and found it completely healed. At that moment, Park Sung-jin entered the room, carrying a tray of food. The table was filled with steaming dishes. This place, he explained, was a recovery house prepared by the Association and the Alchemist Guild, a token of gratitude for stopping the demons. Thanks to Taehyun's intervention, they'd captured Isaka Ryohei and saved countless lives. Park stayed behind to guard him personally, but Taehyun still looked confused. He remembered collapsing during his fight with Niru, yet everything afterward was blank. So, you don't remember either? Park asked. Flashback back to that moment. Park Ji-won had clearly seen Niru obliterated by a single punch. But the man standing there wasn't Kim Taehyun. The stranger raised his hand, his aura cold and suffocating. Park Ji-won dropped to the floor instantly. As the figure tried to move again, his body began to fade away. So, this is my limit. Guess I'll return for now. In the next instant, Taehyun's body collapsed to the ground. When Park Sung-jin finally arrived, the area was nothing but ruins. No one could tell what had actually happened. Later, they questioned the survivors, yet all of them remembered only one thing. Kim Taehyun had defeated Niru, but none could recall how. It was as if their memories had been wiped clean. Maybe it's the demon's doing, Park sighed. Just focus on healing. I'll update you if anything new turns up. But Taehyun knew it wasn't the demons. Niru had been completely devoured by predation. He opened his skill window and froze. It now read, Open the Gate of Abyss. That's impossible. It used to be a summoning skill, and it needs 200 mana. I only have 180. At that moment, Park gestured toward the door. Someone's here to see you. The next moment, Im Young walked in slowly. Rather than a friendly visit, it felt more like a challenge. I'm here to check on you, she said coolly. But don't get cocky just because you saved some people and beat a few S ranks. I'll catch up to you soon enough. Taehyun had no idea why she had really come. At first, she might have genuinely wanted to see how he was doing. But now it was clear he was already fully recovered, and the aura around him felt stronger than ever, far beyond what he'd shown during the exam. He's grown even stronger again, she thought uneasy. Then a faint sound from outside caught their attention. Liu Young peeked in quietly, tiptoeing into the room. Im Young was puzzled. Why was her sister suddenly in Taehyun's room? But Liu Young didn't seem pleased. Can you stop calling me sister, please? And for the record, the access code was provided by the association. Besides, 2 S-rank players sharing one room. What do you think that means? Im Young's cheeks turned crimson in an instant. Taehyun quickly cut in. Enough. Just tell me why you're here. Liu Young's tone softened. I came to check on you and to give you something. She explained that during her talk with the association president, she'd learned Taehyun's goal was the Asia Friendship League. You did achieve a great feat at East Corner, but your ranking is still only 30th. The top 5 alone qualify. So I came to hand you this, the clearance right to the dual dungeon, Fire Temple. Meanwhile, back at East Corner, a group of cloaked figures arrived, led by the vice president of the evil guild, Shadow. They were searching for any sign of Niru, but found nothing. When one subordinate asked if they should report back, Shadow replied calmly, "No need. Niru was just a hired pawn. Our true goal is already complete." At that moment, a massive cargo ship appeared on the horizon. The captain shouted, "This area is restricted. Authorized investigators only." But before he could finish, they vanished into thin air. A second later, the entire ship sank silently into the freezing depths. That was Shadow's power, spatial erasure. He smirked and muttered, "Kim Tae-hyun, you're becoming more and more interesting." The scene shifted. The crowd was buzzing with excitement. After all, the hero of East Corner, the S-rank player Kim Tae-hyun, had arrived in person. Even though he'd earned the right to raid the dungeon, the loot distribution and team lineup would still be decided by the guild. Tae-hyun had no objections. After all, this was the Fire Temple, named for the flames that burned eternally at its entrance. The Fire Temple was the second dual dungeon ever discovered in the country. Before Tae-hyun's return, the Nightwalker Guild had tried to clear it and suffered heavy casualties. For the sake of both points and profit, Tae-hyun had no choice but to take part. But his right hand was still damaged from predation, leaving him weaker and slower. Soloing it was impossible. However, if he went in with another S rank, Liu Young, that would be a different story. With 2 S ranks together, almost nothing could stop them. The screen shifted again. Over 300 players marched toward the dungeon gate. Yet only 2 of them were allowed to enter. Tae-hyun blinked. "Wait, just the 2 of us?" Liu Young grinned. "Of course. Think of it as our little date." As they stepped into the dual dungeon, Fire Temple, the world around them twisted. Liu Young's eyes widened slightly. The atmosphere here felt nothing like a normal dungeon. "Are all dual dungeons like this?" she murmured. Tae-hyun replied, "At least the one I cleared before, the Apocalypse Dungeon, felt the same." He was still thinking about which path to take when a tentacle shot out of the darkness, dragging him straight into a hole. Tae-hyun reacted instantly, ready to strike back. But then he froze. Liu Young had already taken a monster down in a single blow. He stared in disbelief. She'd wiped it out effortlessly. Without pausing, Liu Young charged forward again. A flash of light cut through the darkness, and in the blink of an eye, dozens of first-tier monsters were annihilated. It seemed that what Liu Young showed last time wasn't her true power. No wonder this raid only needed 2 people. Tae-hyun clenched his fist. He'd have to push himself even harder. Within minutes, the 2 had wiped out every monster and reached the lower depths. The creatures were numerous and strong, yet none could withstand Liu Young's blows. Tae-hyun couldn't help wondering what her team had faced before his return that led to such a devastating loss. That was when Liu Young handed him a ring. It was called the Ring of the Warrior. It boosted the wearer's strength and stamina, enough to make up for the power Tae-hyun had lost because of his injured right hand. She smiled. "If you join the guild, you can get even better items than this." But Tae-hyun didn't answer right away. He just warned, "Stay alert. We're already at the boss zone." Liu Young glanced around and pointed ahead at a massive round object. "Wait, that egg is the boss." Tae-hyun nodded. The mysterious egg was radiating a surge of mana. He was about to inspect it when Liu Young suddenly leapt forward and struck the egg with a full power attack. Tae-hyun was stunned. Why was she so reckless? When the dust and smoke cleared, the giant egg lay shattered on the ground. So this is the so-called dual dungeon boss? How pathetic. Liu Young smirked. But then a blinding blue light burst from below. A deep, booming voice echoed. "Humans dare trespass upon my sanctuary? How amusing." The light faded, and a massive flaming silhouette rose from the abyss. The S-rank monster, the Phoenix. Both of them stood frozen in shock. The Phoenix, a creature long mistaken by humans as immortal, possessed unmatched regeneration and resistance to magic. Even Tae-hyun hadn't expected the dungeon's boss to be a blue-flamed phoenix. With a piercing cry, the phoenix lunged at them. Taehyun instantly realized its power carried a wave of mind control. He tried to warn Lu Young, but her eyes dimmed, and she suddenly turned her blade on him. The S-rank Lu Young had fallen under the phoenix's domination. Faced with her relentless assault, Taehyun could only dodge. He unleashed King's Haki, knocking her to the ground. "Damn it! Snap out of it," he shouted. But Lu Young had already gathered her mana. A blast of raw energy surged forward, tearing the ground apart. The phoenix hovered above, chuckling darkly. Humans so fragile, so easy to twist. At that moment, a flicker of awareness crossed Lu Young's face. A chain suddenly coiled around her left leg. Then several more wrapped around her body, pinning her in place. The enchanted chains carried a paralysis effect. She couldn't move at all. "So, it was you who crushed the Nightwalker Guild back then," Taehyun muttered. "This'll hurt, but bear with it." He raised his stone-like fist and slammed it down with all his strength. Lu Young collapsed. Once she awoke, the phoenix's control would be broken. "Then it's your turn," Taehyun said coldly. The moment he spoke, both sides unleashed their full mana. Soon after, Taehyun was seen darting through the fiery caverns, carrying the unconscious Lu Young on his back. Facing an S-rank monster alone was nearly impossible. With every strike from the phoenix raining down, he could only look for an opening to fight back. Then in one swift motion he slipped behind it and swung with all his strength. But the phoenix dodged effortlessly, beating its blazing wings. Even when he tried to bind it with chains, the blue flames incinerated them instantly. Taehyun gritted his teeth. "This thing is tougher than I thought." As he hesitated for a split second, the phoenix spewed another wave of blue fire. He narrowly rolled aside, the heat scorching past his cheek. "No way, this isn't a normal phoenix," he muttered. Could it be the ultimate phoenix? A creature unlike any other. Its power surpassed that of any standard S-rank beast. Humans had classified it as an S+ tier monster to mark its destructive might. If that was true, then with his current strength, he stood no chance of breaking its regenerative core. Unless he used predation, but that power might spiral out of control again. As Taehyun hesitated, Lu Young suddenly opened her eyes. Lu Young was stunned by what she saw before her. Taehyun quickly explained the situation in a few brief words. But before she could even respond, the phoenix charged toward them. "So, you really think you can ignore me?" it roared. Yet a moment later, its expression shifted in shock. The two had countered its attack perfectly, moving as one. "Don't get controlled again this time," Taehyun warned. "Relax. I won't," she replied calmly. The phoenix let out a furious screech, its mana flaring as it dove down again. Taehyun activated Heart of the Monarch. In an instant, both their stats surged. Lu Young raised her spear, channeling pure energy through it. With one strike, the phoenix's body was torn apart. "Now, leave the rest to your big sister. SG Amazon. Berserk mode on." With a roar, she hurled her spear with all her strength. The blast shattered the phoenix into burning fragments. She followed up with a flurry of slashes, her figure a blur of light and fire. Her final strike crashed down, slamming the creature into the molten ground. A thunderous explosion shook the entire temple. She was gasping, her strength completely drained. Her knees gave out, and she collapsed to the floor. But the phoenix's regenerative power kicked in once again. Within seconds, half its body was restored. It spread its wings to strike. But countless chains shot from the ground, binding it tight. Trying to rise again? "Not this time," Taehyun muttered. He steadied himself and unleashed predation. "Let's end this." Cut to the dungeon's entrance. Worried faces waited in silence. And then, from the glowing rift, Taehyun appeared, carrying the unconscious Lu Young in his arms. Taehyun finally spoke. The Fire Temple, dual dungeon, cleared successfully. Moments later, the news spread across the entire nation. Lu Young, cheeks flushed, stared at the broadcast in disbelief. Why had something so classified been made public? It turned out that one of her subordinates had leaked the report by accident. She made sure to discipline them properly afterward. At that moment, the guild master arrived to visit her. They sat together outside the hospital, talking under the evening sun. So the master asked, how strong was Tae-hyun in that dungeon? Lu Yi-young smiled faintly. I don't know. I was already unconscious by then. But one thing's certain, he defeated the Phoenix alone. And now, he's gone into the abyss. The master froze. The abyss? He actually went there? Lu Yi-young frowned, unable to understand. Most people, once they reach the top, stop climbing. But he just keeps pushing himself further. What? The master paused, then said quietly, maybe for the sake of the nation. In this age of monsters, he wants to protect humanity. That's why he seeks more power. Lu Yi-young looked away. No, that's not the only reason. Cut to the abyss. The ground was covered in corpses, the air thick with rot and blood. On a throne of bones sat the Lord of the Abyss, the Vampire King, level unknown. He reached out, bestowing power upon a kneeling man. Tell me, the king asked, how does our family's power feel? The man smirked. Incredible. I can feel the strength coursing through me. Zhang Lingfeng, top hunter of the Z Nation. Scene shift, Tae-hyun stepped into the abyss. It was his first time setting foot here since his return. A man in a black uniform greeted him. Paul Beck, G-rank player, World Player Association, Zone 22. He gestured forward. Cool, mate. I'll show you what the abyss truly looks like. If this is your first time here, Paul said, you should hire a guide, or at least a few mercenaries. The World Player Association has built several base camps throughout the abyss to help with exploration. But don't mistake that for safety. Even inside the camps, monsters still attack. For safety reasons, Paul suggested Tae-hyun recruit some players. But Tae-hyun had no intention of doing that. A second later, a massive centipede lunged straight toward them. With a single swing, Tae-hyun cut the creature down instantly. I'm just here for a walk, he said calmly. Soon after, he arrived at a desolate ruin deep within the abyss. He pulled out the magic stone he'd kept in his chest pocket. Thanks to clearing the Fire Temple's dual dungeon, his mana had finally reached 200. That meant he could now activate contract with the demon. But something was off. The skill's description had changed, and it now said it could only be used once. Could it be because of predation? He muttered. Guess I'll find out soon enough. He crushed the magic stone in his hand. In an instant, contract with the demon was activated. A massive gate made of bones rose before him. Let's see what's waiting behind that door. He stepped forward, walking into the gate of the abyss. But as he crossed the threshold, his expression froze. A colossal black castle loomed ahead, silent and ominous. He barely had time to take a step when 3 shadowy figures appeared behind him. Tae-hyun immediately drew his weapon. So, you must be the dangerous things the system warned me about. They were succubi, the fabled soul eaters of the underworld. They devoured men's life force, created illusions, and controlled minds. But ordinary succubi were supposed to be only B-rank monsters' weight. Are they the ones I'm supposed to make a contract with? If that's the case, then I just have to defeat them. He charged forward, but the succubi effortlessly dodged his strike. The next instant, they cast illusion, and Tae-hyun froze in place, his vision clouded by an endless haze. The succubi grinned, proud of their illusion taking hold. But Tae-hyun suddenly struck back. He unleashed King's aura in full force. A shockwave blasted through the hall, sending the demons flying. The illusion hadn't worked on him at all. He'd resisted it with a mysterious, overwhelming power. Now, then, let's begin the contract. To make a pact with a demon, one of 2 conditions must be met. Either you offer what the demon desires, or you make it kneel through sheer power. Tae-hyun chose the second path. But before he could begin, a system message flashed. Target not eligible for contract. He froze, startled by the unexpected notice. Then, countless succubi emerged from the darkness, surrounding him. System alert. Ultimate succubus. S+ rank detected. She smirked. A human? You'll make a fine gift for the queen. Deep inside the castle, a maid knelt before her mistress. Your Majesty, a human has entered the palace. A human. The queen's sultry voice echoed. How amusing. At that same moment, Taehyun stepped inside the grand castle. From every corridor, succubi swarmed toward him. Even he hadn't expected them to be this troublesome. Two of them blocked his path, attacking from both sides. He leaned back, narrowly dodging their claws. Then he released King's aura again. The blast sent both demons flying over 100 meters away. He exhaled, finally catching his breath. If none of them are the contract target, he thought, then there's only one left, the so-called queen. At that moment, a calm-faced maid appeared. Her Majesty awaits you. Taehyun followed her into the throne chamber. On the dais sat a regal, breathtaking woman cloaked in crimson shadow. Welcome to my palace, she purred. I am Rosalia, mother of all succubi. A system prompt appeared. Demonic contract target identified. Taehyun's eyes narrowed. So I was right, it's her. Taehyun froze. The succubus queen was speaking in human language. Surprised? You humans can understand our tongue as well, can't you? So tell me, what brings you here? Power? Wealth? Fame? None of those, he replied calmly. I came to form a contract with you, Your Majesty. Rosalia chuckled softly, then burst into laughter. You're bold, human, but jokes like that can cost your life. Abyssal Duke, Queen of Succubi, Rosalia. Level unknown. In the next instant, countless tendrils lashed out toward him. Taehyun unleashed King's aura, meeting her power head-on. The collision of their energies thundered through the hall. I'll make you submit through strength. Taehyun blocked her strike with a short blade, unfazed. He leapt high into the air and cast Petrify toward her. But a second later, every skill he had simply stopped working. Rosalia snapped her fingers. The world around them warped and twisted. When Taehyun looked again, he was standing in the middle of a modern city. Before he could react, the ground vanished, and he plunged into the sea. That's when he realized it. He was trapped in the queen's illusion. When did she cast it? He muttered in disbelief. When? Her voice echoed around him. From the very beginning, of course. Damn it, he growled under his breath. The moment he understood, he was inside the illusion. The world shifted again. He was standing in a memory from his own childhood. Back then, he used to say every day that he wanted to become an awakened, so his parents could live a better life. But all his parents ever wished for was that he could grow up safe and healthy. As he replayed those warm memories, a flash of light struck, and the scene of the fatal car accident reappeared before him. Then came the echoes of another memory, one he'd rather forget. The days when, without awakening talent, he was bullied endlessly. He became nothing more than a porter in other people's parties. He realized he could help no one, and anyone who helped him ended up suffering. So he left his aunt and uncle behind. His mother once wished him happiness, but to gain happiness, he needed strength. At that moment, the system detected Queen's hypnosis and attempted resistance. Failed. All his stats dropped sharply, every skill disabled. All except one, predation. Without hesitation, Taehyun activated it. On the other side, Rosalia watched with interest. This man still standing, even in my world. But soon, something felt wrong. The Taehyun before her looked older. His memories seemed to split, existing in two timelines. How intriguing, what secret are you hiding? Just as she tried to peer deeper, a figure appeared before her. Her eyes widened. The king. The energy of predation exploded outward, swallowing her entire illusion. The dream shattered, and reality returned. Taehyun now stood behind her, his voice cold. For a queen, peeking into a man's memories is a terrible habit. I'll say this one last time. Rosalia, accept the contract. She smiled faintly. You actually broke free. Impressive. But you can't kill me. She reached out, her tendrils wrapping around him. Very well. I accept. Then she bit gently into his shoulder. System prompt. Conditions met. Summoning contract complete. Demonic pact established. Title acquired. Queen's Man. Skill level updated. New ability unlocked. Perfect hypnosis. Charisma stat increased. Rosalia whispered softly. Rest now, the man chosen by the king. As the contract sealed, Taehyun's vision faded to black. When he awoke, he was back in the player zone. Did Rosalia send me back? He stared at his updated skill list in disbelief. If I can summon her during the Friendship League, then even national level players won't stand a chance. But why did that person suddenly change their mind? And that final line still echoed in his mind. The man chosen by the king. Could it be that she also knows the king? At that moment, Beck turned to him and said, "Why don't you hire a guide?" But Taehyun refused. Everything was over now, and it was time for him to go home. Scene shift. Ryu Ah-young had just finished her hospital discharge. A group of people slowly approached her. "President, congratulations on your recovery." The speaker was Young-han Soo, a mage and player from the Nightwalkers Guild. He brought two pieces of news. Player Kim Tae-hyun had returned from the depths of the abyss. Ryu Ah-young was slightly surprised. After all, that place was known as the graveyard of S-class players. There was no way Taehyun could explore it alone. But Taehyun's return itself wasn't the issue. The real issue was the person who went to meet him. That person was Kwon Kong-hyuk, the leader of Win Semero, one of the four great guilds. Scene cut. Kwon Kong-hyuk suddenly appeared before Taehyun and said, "Let's fight." He then slowly walked toward Kim Taehyun. Kwon Kong-hyuk, the guild master of one of the four great guilds, was known as the strongest tank. He once fought alone against hundreds of monsters for 10 straight hours and won. His most infamous act, however, was forcing people to join his guild through duels. At that moment, Secretary Kim quickly stepped in to stop him. "Can you tone it down a bit? Keep this up, and you'll be banned from the abyss entirely." She then turned to Taehyun to explain. "Actually, we're here to invite you to join our guild. If you agree to join, there's no need for a duel. So basically, if I refuse, I have to fight you, right?" "Exactly. But honestly, joining us isn't a bad deal for you." She knew that Taehyun was already preparing for the Friendship League. Their guild had the deepest progress in abyss exploration among the four greats, with massive dungeon resources and strong research support. If Taehyun joined them, it would easily cover the contribution points he still lacked. Hearing this, Taehyun fell silent, deep in thought. But before Secretary Kim could say more, Kwon Kong-hyuk gestured for her to stop. If he were that easy to recruit, he would have joined someone else a long time ago. Taehyun looked up and muttered, "I've changed my mind. We'll do this your way. Whoever wins gets what they want." Scene cut to a massive arena, already packed with a roaring crowd. The audience buzzed with excitement, eager to witness the clash between Kim Taehyun and Kwon Kong-hyuk. Just then, a familiar figure caught Taehyun's eye. It was reporter Kim. Taehyun grabbed her by the arm with a grin. "Long time no see, reporter Kim. We met during the player examination, didn't we?" Blushing, she nodded quickly. "Of course, I remember." Taehyun smirked and turned to the crowd. "Any further questions?" "She'll handle them. I've got a duel to attend." With that, he turned and walked away. A moment later, Taehyun stepped onto the arena stage. Kwon Kong-hyuk muttered, "Honestly, I thought you'd chicken out." Taehyun shot back confidently. "Enough talk. Let's fight." Their auras flared, two titans ready to collide. On the sidelines, Choi Hae-sul announced, "The rules are simple. The match ends when one side is completely defeated." Before she could finish, both men unleashed their mana at full power. Taehyun struck first, activating King of Night's aura and charging straight at him. The skill's power had grown immensely, enough to suppress even S-class players, but it barely fazed Kwon Kong-hyuk. Still, he smirked. Not bad. In the next instant, he vanished and reappeared behind Taehyun, his speed like that of a hunting leopard. He swung with full force. The impact roared like a tiger's pounce, shockwaves ripping through the arena. Taehyun was blasted dozens of meters away. Without using petrifying time, he might have been crushed. Before he could recover, Kwon Kong-hyuk launched another attack. Mana surged, forming a pair of glowing bull horns on his forehead. "Bull charge," he roared, dashing forward. Taehyun dodged sideways, just in time. Then, boom! An enormous phantom elephant appeared behind Kwon. It stomped down with earth-shaking power. As the dust settled, Taehyun was still standing tall in front of him. Kwon Kong-hyuk smirked. "Not bad. Your evasion's impressive. But tell me, how do you plan to win this fight? Taehyun grinned. Unless you've got another beast hiding up your sleeve, this isn't ending the way you think. Then watch closely, Kwon said, eyes burning. I'll finish this in one move. In an instant, the entire arena erupted. Everyone knew what was coming. This was Kwon Kang-hyuk's final form. The crowd murmured. Even a rising star like Taehyun couldn't possibly stand against the guild master himself. Even Yu Ah-young leaned forward with curiosity, eyes fixed on the stage. But Young Han-soo nervously warned, if Taehyun loses, he'll be forced to join the guild. We have to stop this match. Kwon's ability, Beast's Blessing, allowed him to mimic the power of any creature. In close combat, that made him an unstoppable monster. Against him, Taehyun had virtually no chance. But Ah-young simply smiled. Don't worry, Taehyun's never shown all his cards in any fight. Next moment, Kwon charged forward at full strength. Taehyun didn't flinch. He met the attack head-on, calm and focused. As their blows clashed, gasps filled the arena. Kwon Kang-hyuk suddenly dropped to his knees. Even he looked completely confused. Taehyun straightened his back and said coolly, "Looks like I win." The crowd froze. No one could believe what they were seeing. The guild master who had cleared over 100 dungeons was kneeling. On his own, whispers spread. Had Taehyun cheated somehow? Taehyun glanced at him, thinking, so this is the power of the strongest tank. There's no way I could have beaten him in pure combat. If not for my hypnosis skill at the last second, I'd have lost for sure. Kwon's face twisted with fury. He clenched his fists. Damn it, I let my guard down. Then he raised his voice. Silence. I don't know what he did, but I admit it. I lost. If you're part of my guild, you'll respect that result. From the stands, Yu Ah-young watched, half amused. He's fuming. Guess that hit his pride hard. Still, to make him kneel in a single instant, Taehyun definitely has another hidden trump card. Taehyun, you never fail to surprise me, Kwon Kang-hyuk said with a half smile. Taehyun extended his right hand calmly. It was a good match. Kwon frowned slightly. Tell me, did you plan this from the very start? Taehyun nodded. In a way, yeah. Kwon sighed. A deal's a deal, then. So, he continued, what do you want? Endless wealth? A one-of-a-kind artifact? Taehyun shook his head. Neither. I want access to the Minotaur's labyrinth. I'm joining that raid. Elsewhere, the department chief was stunned by the news. The Minotaur's labyrinth lay dangerously close to the abyss entrance, a maze of traps and twisted spatial rifts. It required players with exceptional perception to survive, yet countless guilds and S-class adventurers had already failed. Currently, the Indivisible Guild held the raid rights, planning to explore it in secret. But how did Taehyun even know about it? Wouldn't this cause trouble? The chief couldn't shake off his unease. In the abyss, anything could happen. But for now, they had no choice but to trust Taehyun. His real worry wasn't the dungeon itself. It was the possibility that his worst fears might come true. At that moment, an alarm blared from the operations screen. Urgent message from the Our Nation Players Association. They're requesting immediate contact. The saint herself had sent an official invitation to Kim Taehyun. The guild master was stunned upon hearing the news. Scene shift to the massive gate control center beneath the association headquarters. Secretary Kim was checking the roster. Head count confirmed, 100 participants for the labyrinth raid. Everyone's present. Under the guild master's lead, the group advanced toward the entrance of the Minotaur's labyrinth. A thunderous boom echoed moments later. The raid had begun. Monsters swarmed out from the shadows. A single figure dashed past. In an instant, every nearby Minotaur fell, sliced cleanly apart. Kwon Kang-hyuk grinned. Didn't expect you to be that sharp. How's the weapon handling? Taehyun nodded. Feels great. Kwon smirked. Good. That blade, Aslan, rare grade. It was supposed to be your welcome gift if you join my guild. Taehyun raised an eyebrow. You sure about this raid? No one's ever cleared this labyrinth in 30 years. Kwon replied calmly. Yeah, it won't be easy unless we use special tactics. But Secretary Kim waved off the concern. Relax. Everyone here's at least B class. These beasts won't last long. Plus, the Vice Master's using perception magic to reveal all the traps ahead. Actually, we've been preparing for months, she added. In the depths of the abyss, we found a creature that escaped the labyrinth. It bore the same sigil etched across its body. When they touched the creature's remains, everything except the broken horn crumbled into dust. That confirmed it. They could use the horn's trace to locate the true path deeper inside the labyrinth. Moments later, under the Vice Master's lead, the team reached the end of the maze. Before them stood a massive Minotaur statue, towering and ominous. Wait, are we supposed to attach the horn to it? Someone asked nervously. Kwon Kanghyuk gestured. Bring the horn here. Taehyun thought to himself. So it really is repeating the same as before. The raid team found the statue, reattached the horn, and that's when everything went wrong. At that moment, the guild master fixed the horn into place. A faint rumble echoed as the statue began to dissolve. Bone-white remains emerged from within the fading stone. When the light faded, they found themselves standing in a completely different environment. Just as I thought, Taehyun realized grimly. A spatial shift trap, it's been triggered.